Chapter 1401. The body of the fire god race's first-rank great overlord that was enveloped in flames was directly grabbed by an invisible hand condensed by Long Yu's ninth underworld divine script, and then it was pulled in front of Long Yu. It was just about to flee, so how could it have imagined that Long Yu would possess such a technique? Before it could react, Long Yu had successively executed the second and third section of the Boundless Grasp. The ninth underworld divine script that contained the power of corrosion instantly broke through the fire god race's body and blasted into it. The third section of the Boundless Grasp could tear through space and blast into the opponent's body, and it was similar to the martial technique that Long Yu cultivated in the past, the Void Rend Annihilation. When this move was executed out of the blue, even the first-rank great overlord of the fire god race suffered a heavy injury in an instant. The main reason was that the fire god race's first-rank great overlord's physical body wasn't very strong, and it wasn't even comparable to Long Yu's current physical body. So, Long Yu's boundless grasp tore through space and directly blasted the fire god race's first-rank great overlord into a heavy injury. Immediately afterward, Long Yu didn't hesitate at all and executed his eighth divine ability, the Ball of the Nine Underworld. The first-rank great overlord of the fire god race hadn't died yet, and there were still a few mid-rank fire god race overlords left. So, Long Yu decided to deal with them all at once. The Ball of the Nine Underworld appeared, and a sticky and coiling force instantly spread out and trapped the remaining fire god race overlords within it. Even the first-rank great overlord of the fire god race couldn't escape the Ball of the Nine Underworld's bindings. Immediately afterward, the ninth underworld divine script that emanated from the Ball of the Nine Underworld enveloped the fire god race overlords one by one. In practically an instant, a terrifying corrosive force erupted. After 2 or 3 breaths of time, these fire god race overlords were completely torn apart by the Ball of the Nine Underworld, and then all of them were absorbed by the Ball of the Nine Underworld. It didn't take long for not even a shadow of the fire god race overlord to be left behind. Not only that, even the fire attribute divine script aura left behind by the Ball of the fire god race was completely absorbed by the Ball of the Nine Underworld. Long Yu had experimented with it before. The sphere of the Nine Underworlds couldn't devour too much energy in a short period of time. Therefore, he had mainly devoured the first-rank fire god race ruler. As for the other fire god race rulers, he didn't devour them into the sphere of the Nine Underworlds. He just used the sphere of the Nine Underworlds to kill them. After devouring the rank 1 fire god race ruler, Long Yu discovered that the power of the sphere of the Nine Underworlds had indeed increased by another level. In reality, he had been devouring the Ice God clan in the small world every once in a while. After such a period of time, the power of the Ball of Nine Underworlds had increased by about 1,000th of its original level. A 1,000th increase in power was really nothing. But now, Long Yu discovered that after the Ball of Nine Underworlds swallowed the fire god race's first stage Great Dominator, its power suddenly increased by 1,000th. This was equivalent to the total effect of the previous 4 to 5 months of hard work. This made Long Yu's eyes light up. I don't know how much this Ball of Nine Underworld can increase in strength by devouring. If it can devour once a day, then it will double in 3 years. But I can imagine that if it devours an even stronger opponent, such as a 7th phase great ruler of the fire god race, then the strength of the Ball of Nine Underworld will increase even faster. Long Yu thought to himself and put this matter aside for the time being. It was impossible to increase the strength of the Nine Underworld sphere too much in a short period of time. If he wanted to slaughter and devour foreign races without restraint, he would probably have to wait until Long Yu reached at least the 4th phase Dominator rank. At that time, Long Yu should be able to deal with ordinary 7th phase Great Rulers. He could find some high phase Great Rulers to devour, and his speed would be much faster. As for now, Long Yu had already wiped out all the Fire God clan members in the field, and did not give them a chance to spread the news. No Fire God clan member knew that the line of defense in this direction had collapsed. Long Yu took advantage of this time, and directly flew towards the fiery spatial barrier in front of him. Then, when he neared the barrier, he immediately used the Book of Shadows ability. In that instant, Long Yu disguised himself as the same power as the fiery spatial barrier and seeped through it. Without a doubt, Long Yu's innate ability was completely unreasonable. Even the fiery spatial barrier created by the 7th phase dominators of the Fire God race was easily pierced through by Long Yu. The Book of Shadows allowed Long Yu to disguise himself as anything. Even if it was a gust of wind, a drop of water, a wave of absolute beginning power, etc., he could even turn into nothingness. Such a method was the greatest guarantee for Long Yu's survivability. It was also his greatest advantage when compared to other cultivators. Originally, Long Yu was a little worried. After all, this fiery spatial barrier was created by a 7th phase dominator. Even if he could pass through it, he might not be able to do so without anyone noticing. He might even be detected by the Fire God race. However, he quickly understood that he was worried for nothing. He passed through the fiery spatial barrier without making any noise. He didn't give the Fire God race any chance to detect him. When Long Yu passed through the fiery spatial barrier, no Fire God race discovered his aura. Now that he was here, he didn't dare to swagger forward. Turn into nothingness. With a thought, Long Yu executed the Book of Darkness and turned into nothingness. He moved deeper into the nothingness of the void. Long Yu was about a day away from setting up the teleportation formation. If it was him before, he might not have been able to last that long. After all, turning into nothingness consumed too much power. However, things were different now. He had advanced to the martial Dao realm of a superior dominator. The power in his body was 10 times stronger than when he was a lower dominator. If he could turn into nothingness for 2 hours back then, he could now turn into nothingness for a day. As Long Yu set up the teleportation formation, the Dominator Legion surrounded by the Fire God race would quickly arrive. At that time, Long Yu could just leave with them. He didn't need to turn into nothingness and run away wretchedly. Long Yu continued to move forward in the void. He discovered that the area was filled with Fire God race patrol squad. Fortunately, the other party couldn't detect Long Yu in his current state. Otherwise, he would inevitably have to fight one fierce battle after another. In a situation where he was surrounded by powerful enemies, Long Yu alone wouldn't be able to hold on for too long. Therefore, he could only hide as much as possible and settle the strategic mission first. A day passed. Along the way, Long Yu had already seen several waves of elite patrol squads. These Fire God race's elite patrol squads were all existences that were at least at the 3rd phase Great Dominator rank. If any one of them was given to Long Yu, they would be able to suppress him. Even if the other party couldn't kill Long Yu, it would be extremely difficult for Long Yu to kill them. Long Yu didn't pay attention to these patrol elite. Instead, he quickly arrived at his predetermined location. He found that there were Fire God race elite patrol squads patrolling the area. Long Yu could only wait on the side. Anyway, the patrol squads couldn't stay in the same place forever. During this period of time, Long Yu's energy was somewhat depleted. He took out a primordial grade pill to recover his energy, allowing him to continue transforming into nothingness for another 4 hours. Time passed bit by bit. There were only 2 days left until the deadline for the strategic mission to be completed. If the deadline was exceeded, the encircled human race ruler legion would probably be completely wiped out by the Fire God race. Because of this strategic mission needed a powerhouse to complete. The reason why the Battlefield Legion was willing to give this mission to Long Yu was because he had a first-class honor badge. This was a symbol of honor, as well as a symbol of strength. Without a doubt, Long Yu had done it. He had come as fast as he could. The encircled ruler legion should still be in the process of persevering. He just didn't know how long the Fire God Race Elite Patrol Squad would be in the vicinity. Long Yu first waited on the side for a moment. He discovered that the 3 Fire God Race Elites of the Elite Patrol Squad didn't move at all. It was as if they were stationed in this place. The 3 third phase Fire God Race rulers squatted in the area in front of Long Yu, forming a triangular shape with each other. These 3 figures were covered in flames. They didn't have hands or feet. They were like clusters of flames floating in the void. The powerful aura of third phase rulers was faintly discernible. If these 3 Fire God Race Elite Patrol Squad didn't leave, Long Yu wouldn't be able to set up the teleportation array in this place. However, he didn't know if the teleportation array could be set up elsewhere. If it could, things would be easy. He could just look around and set it up wherever there were no patrols. Anyway, it wouldn't take too long to set up the teleportation array. An incense stick's worth of time was enough. Long Yu only needed to use his own power to activate the Jade Slip. The Jade Slip contained enough water element primordial power to automatically construct a teleportation array. However, when the teleportation array was being set up, it absolutely couldn't be destroyed by the Fire God Race. Otherwise, everything would be in vain. Long Yu could find another place. When he wasn't sure if another place would work, there were only 2 methods left. The first method was to wait for the 3 elite Fire God Race patrolling to leave this area. However, this method was not reliable enough because during the process of waiting, members of the human race's ruler army would be killed by the Fire God Race at every moment. Long Yu had to set up the teleportation array as soon as possible. The second method was to kill all 3 of the Fire God Race's elite patrolling guards. This was the most straightforward method. However, Long Yu was only at the martial Dao realm of a high-level dominator. It would be too difficult for him to kill all 3 Fire God Race's third-stage dominators at the same time. In addition to these 2 methods, Long Yu thought of another method. This method was a bit complicated to implement, but it was the most likely method to succeed. Chapter 1402. The method that Long Yu came up with was, of course, to lure these 3 Fire God Race patrol elites away. No matter where they were lured to, as long as they could last for an incense stick of time, he would have enough time to arrange the teleportation array. However, it was not an easy task to lure these 3 Fire God Race patrol elite. At least for the current Long Yu, it was still a little too difficult. All kinds of clones and illusions could be killed by these 3 Fire God Race patrol elites in an instant. It would not play the role of luring them away at all. In any case, Long Yu had to give it a try first. Anyway, within a radius of 100,000 miles, there were only these 3 Fire God Race patrol elite. In a short time, he was not afraid of attracting the attention of other Fire God Race members. It should be these 3 Fire God Race patrol elite. The range of their perception was 100,000 miles, so there were no other patrol elites in the vicinity. Long Yu kept thinking and quickly made a decision to let the Void Underworld Dragon Blade take on the task of luring them out. Little Sue, follow me to 50,000 miles away first. Long Yu communicated with Little Sue while maintaining the state of incarnation of nothingness, retreating to the rear. The other party's perception range was 100,000 miles, so as long as Little Sue appeared 50,000 miles away, he could attract the attention of these 3 Fire God Race patrol elite. Long Yu's plan was very simple. No matter how many people the 3 Fire God Race patrol elites chose to send after discovering the Void Underworld Dragon Blade, his plan would succeed. First of all, it was impossible for the other party to be indifferent. After all, the Void Underworld Dragon Blade contained the power of water origin, which could be used to arrange the teleportation array. Therefore, among these 3 Fire God Race patrol elites, 1 or 2 of them would definitely come to investigate the situation. If it was an elite Fire God Race patrolling the area, Long Yu would be able to kill it midway. With Long Yu's strength alone, it would be difficult to kill a third-stage Sovereign Realm Fire God race expert. However, he could give it a try. If there were 2 Fire God race patrol elites coming to investigate, Long Yu would let Little Su stall them, and he would go to the teleportation array to kill the remaining Fire God race patrol elite. No matter what the situation was, Long Yu only needed to face 1 Fire God race patrol elite. At least he could try to stall the other party and take the opportunity to arrange the teleportation array. There was not much time, and Long Yu had no time to think carefully. He retreated 50,000 miles away with the Void Underworld Dragonblade, then he let the Void Underworld Dragonblade come out of the Void, and he let the Void Underworld Dragonblade come out. He believed that the 3 patrolling elites of the Fire God race should have already sensed the existence of the Nether Dragonblade. At this time, Long Yu used balanced control on himself, increasing his perception by 10 times, allowing him to detect the situation within a 300,000-kilometer radius. As Long Yu's martial arts realm improved, the strength of his spiritual sense perception also improved a lot. In this space of nothingness, the range of detection and perception was extremely wide. Then, he discovered that the 3 patrolling elites of the Fire God race had indeed sensed the existence of the Nether Dragonblade, and then sent one of them over. It would probably only take about 30 minutes for it to arrive. Since there's only one, we'll kill it halfway. Long Yu's eyes flickered with killing intent. He separated from the Void Spirit Dragon Blade and transformed into nothingness to travel for a while. When he was about 10,000 miles away from the Void Spirit Dragon Blade, he laid in wait. The enemy would pass through this route without knowing that a Long Yu was lying in ambush. With the element of surprise, at the very least, Long Yu would be able to gain the upper hand in the battle. As for how to fight next, it would depend on how many tricks this elite patrol had up his sleeve. Logically speaking, most patrolling alien cultivators weren't particularly powerful. They were fast and had strong senses, but they weren't that good at fighting head-on. Because of this, Long Yu wanted to find a chance to fight one of them one-on-one. The other party's flying speed was extremely fast. Furthermore, they were using spatial teleportation to get here. Long Yu used a balanced method to detect the speed, frequency, and distance of the other party's spatial teleportation. He then slightly adjusted the location of his ambush. Then, he began to wait for the other party to come over. After about half an incense stick's time, the Fire God race's elite patrol was getting closer and closer to Long Yu. Long Yu was extremely calm. He had done things like this too many times in the past, to the point that it didn't cause any ripples in his heart. Now, the only thing he was worried about was that this third-phase Great Dominator Fire God race's elite patrol was relatively strong. In a head-on battle, he might not be its match. It had to be known that this Fire God race's elite patrol was not necessarily an ordinary cultivator. It might also be a genius of the Fire God race. If it was a Fire God race genius, the kind that could fight beyond ranks, then it would be extremely difficult for Long Yu to fight. Of course, the possibility of one of them being a genius was not high, because how could a genius come out to do hard labor? When there was an abnormality 50,000 miles away, the guy sent out would generally be the most useless guy. It's about time. Let's do it. The next moment, the Fire God race's elite patrol appeared in the center of Long Yu's ambush, as Long Yu expected. The so-called ambush, in fact, didn't prepare any traps in advance. It had to be known that traps and arrays were composed of power. Even if it was far away, it was very likely to be discovered by the other party during the process of setting it up. Therefore, Long Yu directly hid here, turned into nothingness, and waited for the other party to appear before giving the other party a fierce blow. 4 symbol killing prison. Kill. Long Yu didn't have any probing and hesitation. He directly used his strongest means. At this critical moment of life and death, Long Yu wouldn't play any tricks with the other party. After all, his current martial Dao realm was too much lower than the other party. If he didn't establish an advantage from the beginning, it was very likely that the other party would lead him by the nose throughout the battle. The four symbols killing prison appeared, and the power of Azura, Yellow Springs, Death, and Hell instantly surged out. Each of them condensed into countless pitch-black chains, and they suddenly trapped the third-stage Fire God race elite within them. The terrifying corrosive power of death began to devour the life force of the Fire God race patrol elite. The four symbol-killing prisons' countless death lines turned into chains that continuously corroded the other party's body. The third-stage Fire God race patrol elite didn't expect that there would be someone lying in ambush here. Most importantly, it didn't discover the other party at all. If it was an existence stronger than it, there would be no need to hide at all. It could directly deal with it. But if it was an existence weaker than it, there was no reason that it couldn't discover it with its spiritual sense perception ability. This speculation made the Fire God race patrol elite realize that Long Yu's concealment method was very brilliant. And the purpose of such a human brat coming to this place was obvious. Four symbols killing prison, death lines, underworld chains, all of them circled around and trapped the elite of the Fire God clan. This guy reacted quickly and burst out of violent flame power, wanting to dissolve the death lines condensed by the four symbols killing prison. If Long Yu used other ordinary means, it might be broken by the other party. Even the death lines of the four symbol killing prison seemed to be melted by the other party's flame power. Fortunately, the four symbol killing prison was worthy of being an ancient god forbidden technique. Even if there was such a huge difference in basic power, the other party couldn't break it in a short time. Fortunately, the four symbol killing prison was worthy of being an ancient god forbidden technique. Even if there was such a huge difference in basic power, the other party couldn't break it in a short time. The Fire God race's physical body was relatively weak. Long Yu was very clear about this. Therefore, he hid his killer move behind the four symbol killing prison. Limitless grasp, break for me. Long Yu yelled and grabbed the air with one hand. This grasp didn't pull the Fire God race over. Instead, it directly connected to the third section of the grasp, void-breaking killer move. The invisible hand condensed by the 9 nether divine runes instantly invaded the body of the Fire God race patrol elite. Then, the corrosive power and the void-breaking power erupted at the same time. Even a third-stage Great Sovereign Realm Fire God race patrol elite didn't have a very strong physical body. The third section of Long Yu's limitless grasp directly bombarded the core of the opponent's body. It was the easiest to deal with such a weak physical body. The limitless grasp broke through the void, and the Fire God race patrol elite suffered a serious injury. Its core of power was similar to the human race's Dantian and the demon race's beast core. More than half of it was easily destroyed by Long Yu. Originally, the four symbol killing prison was Long Yu's strongest killer move. It was also this move that attracted the attention of the Fire God race patrol elite. After all, such a terrifying killer move was an ancient god forbidden technique. This Fire God race member had probably never seen such a terrifying killer move in his life. Naturally, he thought that this was Long Yu's greatest threat to him. However, in the case of a huge difference in basic power, the four symbol killing prison couldn't kill the other party completely. It could only delay the other party for a while. If Long Yu couldn't kill the other party in a short time, then the one who would die would be Long Yu. Fortunately, the third section of the limitless grasp was extremely powerful. It penetrated the other party's body and bombarded the core of the other party's power. When the other party's body, which was similar to the human race's Dantian, was destroyed and heavily injured, its overall strength instantly fell to a level that was even weaker than Long Yu. Ancient Dragon Bone Tower, Absolute Space Domain. At this time, Long Yu's victory was basically set. The most important thing was to prevent the other party from spreading the news. In addition, the explosive aura of Long Yu's two techniques was also controlled by the absolute space domain in time, so it didn't spread far. Dragon Bone Destruction, Kill. Long Yu entered the ancient Dragon Bone Tower and activated the Dragon Bone Destruction, which rotated rapidly and bombarded the heavily injured Fire God Race Patrol Elite. Chapter 1403. Although the other party had been severely injured, Long Yu did not let his guard down. He did not want to fail miserably. After all, the other party's martial realm was clear. Even if the core of its power was destroyed, it might still be able to unleash a wave of power, or even choose to self-destruct. No matter what, Long Yu had to ensure his own safety. The ancient Dragon Bone Tower was a supreme-grade unbounded combat weapon. With Long Yu's 9 underworld screen covering the ancient Dragon Bone Tower, its defense had become extremely strong. It definitely far exceeded the toughness of Long Yu's body. Following that, the entire ancient Dragon Bone Tower began to spin rapidly, turning into a whirlwind that swept towards the elite Fire God tribe patrolling. The elite Fire God tribe patrolling had to deal with the power of the 4 Symbols Death Prison, while its core of power was heavily injured by Long Yu's boundless grasp. At this moment there was no room for it to dodge. The ancient Dragon Bone Tower arrived. The elite Fire God tribe patrolling tried to self-destruct, but with its core of power heavily injured, it could not even self-destruct. In the next moment, the Dragon Bone Destruction whirlwind charged forward swiftly, and it blasted the body of the elite patrolling Fire God clan into pieces and completely shattered it into pieces. "I've finally taken care of one." Long Yu stood in the space within the ancient Dragon Bone Tower and heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, he felt that there seemed to be a deeper level of communication between him and the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. This feeling made Long Yu's heart skip a beat. Wasn't this the same feeling he had when he had reached the unparalleled realm with the Netherworld Dragon Blade? Could it be that he had finally reached the unparalleled realm with the ancient Dragon Bone Tower? Previously, Long Yu had always been at the Divine Union realm with the ancient Dragon Bone Tower, but he had never taken the step to the unparalleled realm. But now, after killing the elite Fire God tribe patrolling together, he had finally taken the most crucial step. As the connection between Long Yu and the ancient Dragon Bone Tower grew closer, Long Yu felt that a certain consciousness was being born in the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. The consciousness of the ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda, which had been born from its incomparable compatibility with the Jiryo Dragon Emperor, had long dissipated. The ancient Dragon Skeleton Tower that had been completely repaired by Long Yu through various methods was no longer the same combat weapon as when the Jiryo Dragon Emperor was in Jiryo Dragon Emperor. After becoming incomparably compatible with Long Yu, the self-consciousness that was born was naturally no longer the same as before. When Long Yu sensed the self-consciousness of the Dragon Skeleton Tower being born, he could finally confirm that he was truly compatible with the Dragon Skeleton Tower to an unparalleled level. Speaking of which, the cooperation with the ancient Dragon Skeleton Tower this time was just an ordinary battle. As for why it could suddenly reach the unparalleled level, it could only be said that Long Yu had fused with it for far too long, and it had never improved again. After such a long period of preparation, he finally had some result. Unparalleled. 9 Nether Military Order. Long Yu sensed the changes between himself and the ancient Dragon Skeleton Tower, and soon realized that he could use a new move, which was called the 9 Nether Military Order. This move seemed to be able to summon a portion of the 9 Nether Army to aid Long Yu in battle. It could be said to be a summoning method. The Nether Dragon Blade of the unparalleled compatibility has given rise to the Nether Burial, an extremely powerful offensive move. I'm sure this 9 Nether Military Order won't be a simple move. Long Yu thought to himself. He was rather expectant. Since he had already taken care of an elite patrol from the Fire God tribe, it wouldn't take long for him to try out the 9 Nether Military Order. Moreover, after his compatibility with the ancient Dragon Skeleton Tower reached the unparalleled level, the strength of the absolute space domain had increased by several times, and the destructive power of the dragon skeleton break had also increased by several times. If he could use it again, it would be even more powerful. Under the concealment of the absolute space domain, Long Yu directly activated the 9 Nether Military Order, and then discovered that in every level of the ancient dragon skeleton tower, there were dark creatures that had mastered the power of the 9 Nether Divine Text. These dark creatures looked like all kinds of strange races, and all of them contained the power of the Revelation Level 9 Nether Divine Text. They were of different cultivation realms, and their numbers were also different. For example, Long Yu counted some dark creatures that looked like hexagonal crystals had appeared in the ancient dragon skeleton tower. They looked exactly like the Ice God tribe, except that their bodies were completely black, and they contained the power of the 9 Nether Divine Text. There were also dark creatures that looked like the Fire God tribe, the Desolate God tribe, the Wood God tribe, and so on. So the 9 Nether Military Order is to turn all the foreign races trapped in the ancient dragon skeleton tower into dark creatures for my use. Long Yu quickly understood the effect of this move, and this made him very excited. This was because the dark creatures summoned by the 9 Nether Military Order were mostly at the same martial realm as Long Yu. They were high-level dominators, as well as some mid-level dominators and low-level dominators. Even a few first-stage sovereigns had been summoned. These dark creatures were originally imprisoned in the ancient dragon skeleton tower, but they had all died inside. The 9 Nether Military Order could reform the dead foreign races with the 9 Nether Divine Text. With Long Yu's current strength, he could only summon a few second-stage dominator foreign races at most. 6 second-stage dominator foreign races. The Ice God tribe, Fire God tribe, Earth God tribe, Winged God tribe, Wood God tribe, and Desolate God tribe. Exactly 6 foreign races, and each race has summoned one. Long Yu was very excited. With these 6 second-stage dominator dark creatures, the remaining 2 patrolling elites from the Fire God tribe would not be a problem at all. The appearance of the 9 Nether Military Order was a blessing to Long Yu. It instantly resolved his current predicament. If he had learned this move before, he wouldn't have needed to use the strategy of luring the tiger away from the mountain. Long Yu could definitely get rid of the 3 patrolling elites from the Fire God tribe with the 9 Nether Military Order. Master, you must know that the dark creatures summoned by the 9 Nether Military Order cannot be reborn once they die. I must remind you that the dark creatures you have summoned are all the dark creatures in the tower. If you want to summon more in the future, you will have to seal some foreign races into the tower. The self-consciousness that had just been born in the ancient dragon skeleton tower gradually awakened. This self-consciousness was quite considerate, and directly told these things to Long Yu. However, Long Yu could hear a somewhat mechanical tone from the other party's consciousness. It seemed that every soldier's self-consciousness and personality were different. The Void Spirit Dragonblade's consciousness was quite amiable, but the self-consciousness of the ancient dragon skeleton tower was a bit old-fashioned. However, this didn't matter. In any case, the self-consciousness of both parties had completely fused with Long Yu. It could be said that they were both a part of Long Yu. Long Yu didn't need to pay attention to things like the personality of the self-consciousness. I understand. Long Yu nodded. Only now did he understand that all the foreign races in the ancient dragon skeleton tower were here, which made him a little disappointed. However, just the 6 darkness creatures that had been transformed from second-phase great sovereigns were enough to solve the problem he was currently facing. 9 Nether Military Order Seal. With a thought, Long Yu activated the 9 Nether Military Order towards the Fire God Race Patrol Elite that had been destroyed by the Dragon Skeleton Tower. A beam of dark light suddenly arrived and directly sealed the body, mind, and soul of the 3rd stage Dominator Fire God Race Patrol Elite into the ancient Dragon Skeleton Tower. This way, he could use the 9 Nether Military Order in the future to transform this Fire God Race Patrol Elite into a dark creature for his own use. This move was very easy to use, and Long Yu heaved a sigh of relief. Immediately after, he didn't waste any time and called Little Sue back. He then cleared all traces of battle in the area, turned into nothingness again, and rushed towards the place where the formation was set up. It was time to kill the remaining 2 Fire God Race Elite Patrol Beasts. Long Yu kept turning back. The 2 Fire God Race Patrol Elites still didn't realize that the rookie they had sent had already been killed by Long Yu, and that someone was still approaching them. Soon, Long Yu returned to the 10-mile range of the 2 Fire God Race Patrol Elite. Under the effect of turning into nothingness, the other party couldn't detect his existence at all. Without any hesitation, Long Yu suddenly burst out with the ancient dragon skeleton tower. The absolute space domain instantly blocked the space in the area, making it impossible for the other party to send out a distress signal. Immediately after, the 6th second stage Dominator Realm alien dark creatures were released by Long Yu from the ancient dragon skeleton tower, and each of them rushed towards the 2 Fire God Race Patrol Elite. The Revelation Level 9 Nether Divine characters continuously exploded and bombarded the 2 Fire God Race Patrol Elite. In an instant, the 2 Fire God Race Patrol Elites were covered in a chaotic and violent attack. At the same time, Long Yu also ordered the other high-level Dominators, mid-level Dominators, and other alien dark creatures with lower martial realms to surround the 2 Fire God Race Patrol Elites to prevent them from escaping. After all, the 2 Fire God Race members who stayed behind might not be rookies like the previous one. They might have some special means, so he had to be on guard. Otherwise, if there was any carelessness, it would cause Long Yu's operation to be in vain. The alien dark creatures appeared out of thin air, and the 2 Fire God Race Patrol Elites immediately raised their spirits, and Fire Attribute Divine characters burst out. One of the Fire God Race Patrol Elites turned into a huge fireball and instantly expanded, enveloping the 2 Desolate God Race and Wood God Race dark creatures. Unending rank martial skill. Long Yu could immediately see that the Fire God Race Patrol Elite had used an unending rank martial skill, and this time, it directly erupted with 8 times the power. There was already a gap in martial realms, and with the unending rank martial skill erupting with 8 times the power, the 2 Desolate God Race and Wood God Race dark creatures couldn't withstand it. Although these 2 dark creatures had the cultivation of second-stage Dominators, they didn't know the martial skills, divine formations, and other means they had when they were alive. Therefore, their combat strength was probably inferior to ordinary second-stage Dominators. However, while the Fire God Race Patrol Elites were dealing with the dark creatures, Long Yu finally made his move. Chapter 1404. Long Yu did not expect to let the 6th second stage Sovereign Realm dark creatures deal with the Fire God Race Patrol Elite. Instead, he was going to wait for the other party's attention to take action personally. 9 Underworld Sphere. Long Yu immediately activated his 8th divine ability. The pitch-black 9 Underworld divine characters condensed into a sphere and appeared in the void. It emitted a sticky entangling force and restrained one of the Fire God Race Patrol Elite. This Fire God Race Patrol Elite had just used an unbounded martial skill 8 times the power to kill the 2 dark creatures summoned by Long Yu. The Fire God Race Patrol Elite was completely unprepared for Long Yu's appearance. As soon as the sphere of 9 underworlds appeared, it controlled it. Then, Long Yu raised his hand and used the Boundless Grasp. An invisible hand condensed from the heaven-level 9 underworld's divine runes pierced through the air and struck the body of the Fire God Race's elite patrol soldier. Its most critical power core was directly smashed into pieces by Long Yu. 9 Underworld Military Order, Absorb. Long Yu activated the ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda and directly absorbed and sealed the Fire God Race Patrol Elite so that he could summon the dark creatures it had transformed into in the future. Then, he did not stop and ordered all the remaining dark creatures to surround the other Fire God Race Patrol Elite. After all, there were too many of them, and the remaining Fire God Race Patrol Elite would not be able to hold out for long. Even though it managed to kill quite a few dark creatures, they were only at the first phase Great Dominator rank, Middle Dominator rank, or High Dominator rank. The 4 second phase Great Dominator rank dark creatures slowly closed in, completely surrounding the Fire God race's elite patrol. Long Yu immediately turned around and used the Boundless Grasp again. The terrifying penetrating power shattered the Fire God race patrol elite's power core. At this point, the 3 Fire God race patrol elites were almost all killed by Long Yu. If not for the fact that he had finally reached an unparalleled level with the ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda and derived the 9 Underworld Military Order, Long Yu would not have been able to kill this group of Fire God race members so quickly. But now was not the time for him to be emotional. Patrol, be on guard. Long Yu had already absorbed and sealed the souls and consciousnesses of the 3 elite Fire God patrollers into the ancient Dragon Bone Tower so that they could be transformed into dark creatures in the future. After that, he had the other dark creatures spread out and stand guard while he took out the Jade Slip with the strategic mission at the location where he had set up the spell formation. Long Yu directly activated the Jade Slip, racing against time to complete the task. From the Jade Slip, bursts of water element power continuously emerged, naturally forming the prototype of a formation in front of Long Yu. This array was, of course, a teleportation array. However, it was only a one-way receiving array. In other words, this array could only allow people to teleport over, but not teleport away from this array. Originally, this teleportation formation was used to receive the besieged Ruler Legion. Hence, there was no need for the teleportation formation to function as long as it could receive the Ruler Legion. Setting up the formation would take about the time it took for an incense stick to burn. During this time, Long Yu had to guard this place and prevent any Fire God clan members from breaking through and destroying the teleportation formation that was being set up. The time it took for an incense stick to burn was not long, but it was not short either. In particular, Long Yu had killed 3 elite Fire God clan patrollers. If there were other elite Fire God clan patrollers in the surroundings, they might have some special means to detect them and rush over to harass them. No matter what, Long Yu had to guard this place to the death. There are Fire God clan members rushing over so quickly? Long Yu had only started setting up the teleportation formation for a while when he received news from the dark creatures under his command. There were already 2 elite Fire God clan patrollers flying over from not far away. Moreover, they seemed to have discovered the abnormality here, so they suddenly accelerated. Little Sue, guard the teleportation formation. I'll go over and stop them. Without any hesitation, Long Yu let the Nether Void Dragon Blade stay behind to guard the teleportation formation. Then, he let the ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda activate the absolute space domain and shrouded the area around the teleportation formation that was being set up. This way, nothing could be directly teleported to the vicinity of the teleportation formation. At the very least, it would be delayed by the absolute space domain for a long time. With this buffer time, the possibility of Long Yu successfully setting up the teleportation formation would greatly increase. On the periphery, there were dark creatures patrolling vigilantly, while the inner circle was guarded by the Nether Void Dragon Blade and the ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda. It would definitely not be a problem to hold out for the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Now, what Long Yu was considering was to delay the arrival of the elite Fire God clan patrollers as much as possible. Or rather, to kill the elite Fire God clan patrollers as much as possible. The elite Fire God clan patrollers that Long Yu had discovered were about 10,000 miles away. Long Yu had enough time to set up an ambush along the way. However, the effect of the ambush this time would probably not be so good. First of all, the other party had 2 elite Fire God clan patrollers on the way together. Second, the other party had already discovered the situation here and was vigilant. It would not be so easy to reveal flaws because of haste. 4 second stage Great Dominator dark creatures can follow me over and restrain one of them. Long Yu made a battle plan in his heart and immediately set off. The 4 dark creatures transformed from different races quickly advanced in the direction of the 2 elite Fire God clan patrollers. Meanwhile, Long Yu turned into nothingness and hid. Using the same trick again, Long Yu did not know if he could achieve the same effect as last time. But no matter what, he had to give it a try. Taking advantage of the fact that there were only 2 elite Fire God clan patrollers, he would kill them if he could. No matter what, he could delay the other party's deployment time. Soon, the 4 dark creatures clashed with the 2 elite Fire God clan patrollers. Both sides clashed. As the other party was already prepared, they moved extremely quickly this time. Almost in just a face-to-face confrontation, the dark creatures transformed from the Fire God clan and the Ice God clan were surrounded by the power of the other party's flame divine text, and then completely burned to ashes. Before Long Yu could react, the other party's powerful means had already killed the 2 dark creatures. But immediately afterward, Long Yu made a brazen move. Without a trace of hesitation, he instantly summoned 5 nether hunters, and at the same time, condensed 100 desolate ancient afterimages. Each desolate ancient afterimage only had the power of 1 attack, but even so, it was enough to attract the other party's attention. As soon as the 5 nether hunters appeared, they performed the Heartblade third slash toward the 2 elite Fire God clan patrollers. Although the rich power of illusion could not completely drag the other party into the illusion, it still made the other party's mind fall into a trance for a moment. It was also at this time that the 100 desolate ancient afterimages performed the 9 nether dragon breath. 100 pitch-black dragon breath flames instantly enveloped the 2 elite Fire God clan patrollers. The means displayed by the desolate ancient afterimages were not as good as Long Yu himself, especially now that there was a huge cultivation gap between him and the elite Fire God clan patrollers. Therefore, it was impossible for the 109 nether dragon breaths of the desolate ancient afterimages to kill the other party. They could not even seriously injure the other party. What Long Yu needed was to let them attract the attention of the elite Fire God clan patrollers, and then he would carry out a one-hit kill. 4 symbols killing prison. Boundless grasp. Seeing that the other party's attention was attracted, and all their thoughts were on defending against the 9 nether dragon breaths, Long Yu did not hesitate to make a move. First, it was the 4 symbols killing prison, then the boundless grasp. Both skills were used at the same time, attacking from the inside and outside. Almost in just a moment, the elite Fire God clan patrollers that was attacked by Long Yu directly suffered a serious injury. However, before Long Yu could react, the elite Fire God clan patrollers were covered in the flames of rebirth. When the flames of rebirth were ignited, the injuries suffered by the entire elite Fire God clan patrollers suddenly recovered. Obviously, this was not a martial arts secret technique that the other party cultivated, but a kind of innate magical power, or a divine formation. As for the specific method, Long Yu did not know, but the key problem was that the other party had completely recovered. This made Long Yu's heart tremble. He knew that it was impossible to deal with the opponent like before. 9 nether ball. Hiding behind the desolate ancient afterimages and the 9 nether hunters, Long Yu directly summoned the 8th magical power. The pitch-black 9 nether ball appeared, and the sticky entangling power of the 9 nether divine characters rushed towards the 2 elite Fire God clan patrollers. The entangling power of the 9 nether ball was definitely not weak. After all, it was condensed after the 9 nether prison tablets swallowed the entire collapsed 9 nether world. At this moment, the appearance of the 9 nether ball almost weakened the movement of the 2 elite Fire God clan patrollers by half. In other words, under the influence of the 9 nether ball, the speed of the 2 elite Fire God clan patrollers was reduced by half no matter what method they used. Berserker Divine Walk. Berserker Fist Cannon. Long Yu's whole body was covered with the Berserker Celestial Barrier, and then he flashed behind one of the elite Fire God clan patrollers with extreme speed, and then he punched out heavily. This was the first time he had a head-on confrontation with a third-stage Great Dominator Realm Fire God clan. He did not want to take the risk, but now he really had no other choice. The four symbols death, prison, and the boundless grasp could not kill this thing. If he used it again, the other party would be vigilant, and the effect would be even lower. Therefore, if Long Yu wanted to kill these two guys, he could only fight head-on. In terms of martial arts realm, it was almost impossible for Long Yu to kill the other party, but Long Yu was very clear about the means he had now. In the previous battles, he had never reached the limit. Now, he wanted to see if he could do it, using that kind of fighting method that was close to self-mutilation to kill an opponent that far surpassed him. Berserker Divine Runes enveloped Long Yu's whole body, making him look like a berserker god descending to the world. When his fist was about to land on the body of the elite Fire God clan patrollers, the power of the Berserker Divine Runes on his whole body had already increased by 7 times. On the body of the Fire God clan, a dry heat almost sprayed onto Long Yu's face, and the power of the Berserker Divine Runes instantly erupted, enveloping Long Yu's whole body. Chapter 1405. Fire Attribute Divine Runes erupted from the body of the Fire God race's patrol elite, enveloping Long Yu. The ultra-high temperature directly burned the surface of his body. Long Yu's physical body was not strong enough to withstand the attack of a third-phase dominator, but he would not be killed just because of it. Berserker Fist Cannon. Long Yu's entire body was scorched black, but he didn't have any intention of retreating. His fist continued to punch forward, and the power of Berserker's divine runes rumbled forth, smashing into the body of the Fire God race's elite patrol guard. Long Yu began to fight the Fire God race one-on-one. The remaining 2 second-phase Dominator Dark creatures, along with 7 or 8 first-phase Dominator Dark creatures, worked together to stall the other Fire God race elite, buying time for Long Yu. In a short period of time, Long Yu directly punched the Fire God race elite 3 times, superimposed with 3 layers of Berserker Fist Cannon. In addition to the previous Berserker Fist Cannon, the power of Long Yu's Berserker Divine Runes had increased by 12 times. The 3 Berserker Fist Cannons just now were also more powerful than the last, but they were unable to cause any damage to the Fire God race elite. At the same time, the Fire God race patrol elite saw that Long Yu could still move, and immediately continued to attack. It should be an innate divine ability. Endless fire attribute divine runes descended from the sky, enveloping Long Yu's entire body. Although Long Yu's physical body was not weak, he had just been seriously injured. Now that he was being bombarded by such an innate divine ability, he naturally could not withstand it. However, he was not in a hurry. He used the Book of Shadows and directly merged with the opponent's fire attribute power. Following that, Long Yu turned into nothingness and came out. He went to the void at the side and hid his aura while activating the demon Dust Heart to heal his injuries. Although Long Yu was seriously injured, the injuries he had just received were only superficial wounds. Relying on the power of the demon Dust Heart, he completely recovered in a few breaths. Immediately afterward, Long Yu jumped out of the void and continued to chase after the Fire God race patrol elite. Berserker Divine Runes enveloped his fist as he continued to fire Berserker Fist Cannons. As a result, Long Yu's Berserker Fist Cannons continued to superimpose. Coupled with the effect of Berserker Fist Cannons, his attacks became stronger and stronger. At this moment, this punch made the Fire God race patrol elite feel a trace of threat. The Fire God race's patrol elite originally thought that the innate divine ability would be enough to kill Long Yu, but he didn't expect that after a few breaths, Long Yu would jump out of nowhere. The elite patrol elite originally wanted to take the opportunity to break through and destroy the teleportation array that was being set up, but it did not expect Long Yu to jump out and punch it. Of the Berserker Divine Runes. Of Berserker Runes were The Berserker Divine Rune, advance courageously. In order to unleash the full might of the Berserker Divine Rune, one would need Long Yu's unyielding momentum. The 2 punches from the left and right were still unable to hurt the opponent. However, Long Yu's Berserker Fist Cannons were superimposed to a higher level. That Fire God Race Patrol elite wasn't prepared for Long Yu's reappearance. Just as he reacted, he was punched twice. In the next moment, he was unable to restrain his anger. Flames erupted from his body, forming 2 blazing light waves that sandwiched Long Yu from the left and right. The destructive power of the 2 blazing light waves was extremely terrifying. Long Yu had just raised his fist and wanted to continue punching the opponent. However, one of his legs and half of his waist were completely vaporized by the 2 blazing light wave. However, the 2 punches still smashed down, and the Berserker Fist Cannons continued to superimpose. Book of Shadows. Long Yu himself felt that he was extremely shameless. Although one of his legs and half of his waist were vaporized by the opponent's blazing light waves, he immediately used the Book of Shadows to hide in the nothingness space. He turned into nothingness, and the opponent could not do anything to him. In this way, the dragon-resisting Devil Dust Heart was once again activated, and it quickly healed his damaged body. The Fire God Race Patrol elite was extremely puzzled when he saw this. He couldn't figure out where Long Yu had gone. His spiritual sense perception was definitely not weak, but he could not detect the location of Long Yu, who had turned into nothingness. Therefore, if he didn't want to be sneak attacked by Long Yu again, he could only use the power of deduction. Unfortunately, it would still take some time for the power of deduction to deduce the location of Long Yu, and this period of time was enough for Long Yu to fully recover from his injuries. As a result, while the Fire God Race's elite patrol was still trying to deduce Long Yu's position, Long Yu had already completely recovered. Long Yu continued his berserk divine steps and instantly flew in front of him, smashing his fist down. With 10 layers of Berserker Fist Cannons superimposed, Long Yu's current punch posed enough of a threat to the Fire God Race Patrol elite. With the first punch, the other party was unable to react in time. Although he had activated a layer of flame defense barrier, this layer of barrier was smashed by Long Yu's punch. Immediately after, the second punch directly smashed the elite patrol of the Fire God Race. Long Yu used various means, using this almost rogue method to gradually superimpose his Berserker Fist Cannons. With these 2 punches, the Berserker Fist Cannons had been superimposed to the 12th level. Coupled with the effect of descent of the Berserker, it meant that the power of his Berserker Fist Cannons was 22 times stronger than the power of his usual Berserker Fist Cannons. After all, there was the 9 Serenity's ball restraining the 2 Fire God Race Patrol elites, slowing down their movements and various means by half. Otherwise, Long Yu would have been defeated at this moment. On the other side, the Fire God Race Patrol elite that was besieged by the dark creatures was almost on the verge of going berserk. 4 great Dominator-level dark creatures had died and were completely burned to ashes, leaving nothing behind. Let's work harder. As long as I can reach the 33 times power of Berserker Divine Rune, I should be able to kill this Fire God Race. Long Yu thought to himself. He didn't stop his actions at all. Now that this Fire God Race Patrol elite was sufficiently vigilant against him, Long Yu changed his target. At this moment, Long Yu directly ordered the darkness creatures to deal with the Fire God Race being that he was originally fighting. As for himself, he executed the Berserker's divine steps and directly flew to the back of the Fire God Race being that was originally surrounded by the darkness creatures. Berserker Fist Cannons. As usual, Long Yu blasted out 2 punches from the left and right. The violent power of Berserker Divine Rune blasted out and directly blasted the Fire God Race away. Berserker Fist Cannons, 14th level. That person from the Fire God Race was instantly enraged. Countless flame shackles condensed in the air and shot towards Long Yu. They formed a cage of flames, trapping Long Yu within it. Furthermore, they were constantly shrinking, binding Long Yu's entire body tightly. The flame shackles were extremely hot and had a control effect, making it almost impossible for Long Yu to move. And this was undoubtedly an excellent opportunity for Long Yu. World Cleansing Soul Mirror. Seeing that the opponent was using a control method, Long Yu did not hesitate to activate the peak derivative of the World Cleansing Body, World Cleansing Soul Mirror. The surface of his body directly emitted a layer of World Cleansing light, condensing into a World Cleansing Soul Mirror, instantly returning all the effects of the flame shackles back 10 times. The thicker and hotter flame shackles instantly rebounded, trapping the Fire God Race Patrol Elite in it. Kill! For Long Yu, this opportunity was too good. He moved to the side of the opponent and continuously punched out, continuously stacking Berserker Divine Walk. Every time he punched out, the body of the Fire God Race that was trapped by the flame shackles would be blasted hundreds of feet away. However, Long Yu could use Berserker Divine Walk to catch up and continue to punch out the next time. The opponent was trapped by its own flame shackles and needed time to break through the shackles. Although it did not take much time, Long Yu took advantage of this time and directly blasted out 6 punches. Berserker Divine Walk, Level 20. It's not enough, I have to crush it. Long Yu's whole body carried a boundless Berserker aura. Although his martial arts realm was only at the high-level sovereign level, in terms of aura, he did not lose to the 2 Fire God Race Patrol Elites in front of him. Immediately afterward, he raised his hand and activated the Boundless Seal. An invisible and strange force appeared and formed a boundless seal, directly sealing the elite patrol of the Fire God Race. If the opponent wanted to break through the Boundless Seal, it would take at least a period of time. Long Yu did not hesitate and directly blasted at the Boundless Seal. Berserker Divine Walk continued to stack. In addition, during this period of time, the effect of Berserker Divine Walk had increased over time. Although it was slow, it had already stacked up to 14 levels. Coupled with the bonus of Berserker Divine Walk, a total of 35 levels of Berserker Divine Runes had increased in power. Long Yu still felt that it was not enough. Although this bit of power was enough to kill the opponent, it was not enough to crush it. It would take a lot of time. He blasted 5 punches at the Boundless Seal in a row. Then, the opponent broke the Boundless Seal from the inside and finally escaped. Long Yu did not hold back and directly blasted a punch at the opponent. The Berserker Divine Runes almost tore the space apart. This time, Long Yu did not bring the Nether Void Dragon Blade or the ancient Dragonbone Pagoda. He purely relied on his physical strength and the Berserker Divine Walk to fight the opponent to the death. At this moment, the Fire God Race Patrol Elite had already sensed that this human high-level sovereign in front of them already had the power to kill them. It became extremely cautious. However, the more cautious it was, the more restrictions it would face, and the less likely it would be to kill Long Yu. This was because, as time passed, Long Yu's Berserker Divine Runes would become stronger and stronger. 1 punch, 2 punches, the Berserker Divine Runes condensed into fist winds, almost shattering the physical body of the Fire God Race. The flame barrier continued to condense and barely defended against Long Yu's attack. It was also at this moment that Long Yu felt a sudden heat wave behind him. It turned out to be another Fire God Race Patrol Elite. It had already controlled all the dark creatures and then took the time to attack Long Yu. After all, those dark creatures were still very strong. It was not so easy to get rid of them, but it was easy to trap them. Seemingly seeing that Long Yu was becoming stronger and stronger and posing a great threat to them, the 2 Fire God Race Patrol Elites finally began to attack Long Yu from the front and back. However, it was too late for them to think of joining forces. Chapter 1406. Ancient Desolate Afterimages. Long Yu once again condensed 100 ancient desolate afterimages, and the energy in his body was almost exhausted. But now, each of these ancient desolate afterimages had nearly 50 layers of Berserker divine runes, and their auras were completely different from the original 100 ancient desolate afterimages. These 100 ancient desolate afterimages blasted a Berserker fist cannon at the two Fire God race patrol elites almost at the same time. The Berserker divine runes carried endless power and rumbled towards them. Faced with this situation, the two Fire God race patrol elites released fiery divine runes all over their bodies, and the power of endless fire divine runes swept out, engulfing most of the ancient desolate afterimages in the field and burning them to ashes. However, there were still 20 to 30 ancient desolate afterimages left, and with the aura of endless Berserker divine runes, they directly bombarded their opponents' bodies. At this time, Long Yu was pleasantly surprised to discover that when the ancient desolate afterimages used Berserker fist cannon to attack their opponents, they could also superimpose a certain layer of Berserker heaven power on themselves. Of course, not every ancient desolate afterimage could superimpose a layer. Now, a total of more than 20 ancient desolate afterimages blasted out, allowing Long Yu to superimpose 5 layers of Berserker heaven power. Almost every 5 ancient desolate afterimages that hit an opponent could superimpose 1 layer of Berserker heaven power on Long Yu. This efficiency was still relatively high, but the problem was that Long Yu couldn't often use this method to superimpose Berserker heaven power, because the energy consumed to condense the ancient desolate afterimages was too high. In particular, the ancient desolate afterimages that Long Yu had condensed a high Berserker heaven power had consumed most of the energy in his body in an instant. If he wanted to continue fighting, he could only take an Archean-level medicinal pill. Long Yu's Berserker heaven power superimposed another 5 layers, and the power of the Berserker divine runes he displayed had suddenly increased to more than 55 times. This made him look like a true Berserker god descending to the world. Berserker divine runes suddenly moved, instantly appearing behind one of the Fire God race patrol elites, and then punched out. The terrifying force sent the elite patrol of the Fire God race flying with a single punch. The flames on his entire body scattered, and he was seriously injured. The patrol elite of the Fire God clan was still dealing with Long Yu's desolate afterimage, but he was sent flying by Long Yu's punch, followed by the boundless grasp, and the third part of the grasp broke through the air and bombarded him. The invisible and strange power of the boundless grasp directly invaded the body of the Fire God race's elite patrol, destroying the core of its power once again. Previously, Long Yu had destroyed his body once at the beginning, but he had recovered with some secret martial arts technique. This time, Long Yu didn't plan on giving it any more chances. After using the boundless grasp, he once again used Berserk Divine Walk and blasted out 3 consecutive Berserk fists. Bang! 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 After 3 Berserk fists, the entire body of the elite patrol of the Fire God race scattered into scattered flames. The core of its power collapsed, and its vitality rapidly declined. Soon, there was no vitality left. Now, Long Yu was sure that he had finally killed this guy. Without any hesitation, he turned around and urged Berserk Divine Walk, quickly chasing after the remaining elite patrol of the Fire God race. The elite patrol of the Fire God race now saw that the situation was not good and wanted to escape, but how could it be faster than Long Yu? In the state of Berserk Divine Walk, Long Yu's flying speed soared by 100 times. Sometimes, with the explosive effect of the unbounded level martial skill, his flying speed could soar by 200 or 300 times, or even 400 or 500 times. It could be said that he was as fast as lightning, even faster than some spatial teleportation. In 2 or 3 breaths, Long Yu caught up with the elite patrol of the Fire God race. Just as he was about to kill it, he found that not far away, there were several other elite patrol of the Fire God race, quickly rushing over. There are more and more, but the teleportation array is almost ready. After killing this one, it's time to retreat. Long Yu's heart trembled. He knew that he could not continue fighting like this. Otherwise, when the elite patrol of the fire god race surrounded him, it would definitely be a disaster. Of course, there was no way that Long Yu would let this elite patrol of the fire god race go. Now, the aura of the berserk divine runes around Long Yu's body was extremely high. The power of the berserk divine runes had increased by nearly 60 times. His whole body was like a black stream of light, streaking through the void and catching up with the elite patrol of the fire god race. Immediately after, he raised his fist and smashed it. The terrifying power of the berserk divine runes fell on the head of the elite patrol of the fire god race. It never thought that today, it would be chased by a mere human with a higher sovereign realm cultivation, and even be killed by him. The elite patrol of the fire god race reacted immediately, but it could not dodge or block the attack. The 60 times increase in the power of the berserk divine runes had already made the power of Long Yu's punch equivalent to the level of a 4th stage sovereign. In addition, the berserk celestial body was a high-grade, unending level martial skill, and it was possible to erupt with a stronger destructive power. When Long Yu caught up with the elite patrol of the fire god race, it had 3 times the explosive power. In summary, it was directly equivalent to the punch of a 5th stage sovereign. The elite patrol of the fire god race could not withstand it at all, so it was ready to condense its own power and self-destruct. However, before it had time to self-destruct, Long Yu's attack had already arrived, directly blasting its whole body into pieces. The flames on its body turned into scattered flames, scattered in all directions, and drifted away in the void. 2/3 stage Sovereign Realm Fire God Race Elite Patrol of the Fire God Race were killed by Long Yu just like that. However, the combat power of these patrol elites was relatively low at the same level, so Long Yu did not feel that he was very powerful after killing these guys. Of course, to a certain extent, the current him could even deal with demigods as long as he infinitely stacked the berserk celestial body. But the problem was that with Long Yu's fragile body, he could not even withstand one move from a demigod. Only by staying alive could he possibly defeat his opponent. Long Yu had just been beaten half to death by the elite patrol of the Fire God race. If not for the Devil Dustheart, he would have been a disabled person by now. Therefore, Long Yu's current limit was probably around the level of a 3rd stage sovereign. If he were to deal with an opponent of a higher level, or some expert geniuses who could fight above their level, Long Yu still would not be able to face them head-on. Let's go. Seeing that the other 3 patrol elites of the Fire God race were flying over quickly and were about to arrive in front of Long Yu in the next moment, Long Yu did not hesitate at all and turned around to return in the direction where the formation was being set up. Through the thoughts of the Void Spirit Dragon Blade and the ancient Dragon Bone Tower, Long Yu could know that the location where the formation was being set up was already surrounded by more than 10 Fire God race patrol elite. These patrol elites were breaking the absolute space domain set up by the ancient Dragon Bone Tower as quickly as possible, so that they could enter it and destroy the teleportation formation that was being set up. Unfortunately, the sturdiness of the absolute space domain was far beyond their imagination, and it was definitely not something that could be destroyed in a short period of time. When Long Yu returned, the absolute space domain was still as sturdy as a mountain, and it would take at least half an hour for it to be destroyed by the other party. His compatibility with the ancient Dragon Bone Tower had reached an unparalleled level, which was very useful to Long Yu. It could be said to have solved his urgent problem. It's almost done. When Long Yu sensed that the teleportation formation in the center of the absolute space domain was gradually taking shape, his heart finally calmed down. As long as the teleportation formation was completed, the ruler army would arrive, and Long Yu's strategic mission would be completed. The difficulty of this mission was really not small, and if it was someone else, they might not be able to complete it. Only those with a higher martial realm, such as a 5th stage or 6th stage ruler expert, would be able to complete this mission with relative ease. However, even a peak 7th stage ruler expert might encounter great trouble at the first stage of the flame spatial barrier, and not be able to pass. Because of the flaming spatial barrier, the patrols of the fire god race inside the barrier were not very strict. This allowed Long Yu to take advantage of this opportunity and set up this transmission array. If it was someone else who came, they would not be able to kill the 3 patrol elites if they were too weak, and they might not be able to break through the outer layer of the flame spatial barrier without a sound if they were too strong. Therefore, this strategic mission was very difficult, and usually only people with special abilities would be able to complete it. From this point of view, the fact that Long Yu was able to complete this strategic mission meant that he could be considered as one of the people with special abilities. Long Yu turned into nothingness, and quietly entered the absolute space domain. Looking at the anxious expressions on the faces of the dozen elite fire god tribesmen patrolling the perimeter, he felt like laughing. As expected of the ancient dragon skeleton tower, a supreme-tier endless-grade battle weapon. After fusing with Peerless, the Void Domain was much stronger than before, and because it was an endless-grade battle weapon, it even had the ability to repair itself. The offensive and defensive methods of an unparalleled rank battle weapon could burst out with even greater power, and methods like the Absolute Space Domain could continuously repair itself, making it even more difficult for opponents to destroy it. Finally, the time it took for an incense stick to burn had passed since the construction of the teleportation formation began. It had taken Long Yu nearly the time it took for an incense stick to burn to finish off the 2 patrol elite. Not long after he returned to the absolute space domain, the teleportation formation was finally completed. When the magic array was completed, a wave of water-type absolute beginning power spread out in all directions, causing Long Yu, who was immersed in it, to feel refreshed. At this moment, he seemed to have gained some understanding of water-type absolute beginning power. When I have the time, I'll have to rely on Little Void to comprehend water-type Genesis power. Long Yu thought to himself. Then, he saw the Fire God race patrol elites fleeing in all directions. At the same time, figures flickered out of the completed teleportation formation. Chapter 1407. When Long Yu finished constructing the teleportation formation, the human race ruler army that was trapped not far away could immediately teleport over. The 2 places were separated by about a day's distance, and the Fire God race army was still a day's distance away from surrounding the ruler army. As long as the ruler army teleported over, the human race army would definitely not be able to catch up. The only problem was that the place where they were trapped was definitely constructed with a teleportation formation. Only then could the entire ruler army teleport over to where Long Yu was. In the end, there would definitely be people staying there to either protect the teleportation formation or destroy it to prevent the Fire God race army from chasing after them. Therefore, even if they were escaping, there would definitely be sacrifices. Long Yu was not far away from the teleportation formation. He watched as human experts came out from the teleportation formation. The first to appear was definitely the vanguard. Those with relatively high martial realms were all 3rd, 4th, and even 5th rank rulers. About a dozen experts of this level led more than 100 higher-level sovereigns out of the teleportation array. Every one of them had wounds on them. It was obvious at a glance how intense the battle was over there. When this group of people came out of the teleportation formation and saw that only Long Yu was there, they could not help but be stunned. Long Yu was not far away from the teleportation formation. The Void Nether Dragon Blade was in his hand, and the ancient Dragon Bone Tower was beneath his feet. He was a single higher-rank ruler. He was surrounded by the absolute space domain and over a dozen elite fire god race patrolling in all directions. Such a scene was completely out of the expectations of the first batch of humans that had escaped. Just one person? A higher-rank ruler? He was able to barge so deep into the teleportation formation that allowed them to escape? This was too shocking. "This, little brother, are you the only one here?" The leader was a fifth-rank ruler expert. He was tall and sturdy, but his golden armor was already in tatters. Some parts of it were even charred. It was unknown how many attacks he had endured from the fire god race. He asked Long Yu directly. His voice was solemn and full of vicissitudes. "That's right. How many do you have left?" Long Yu nodded his head and replied with a question. "Our sovereign core originally had 10,000 brothers, but now we have 6,500 brothers left." When he spoke up to this point, the burly man's face sank. Obviously, it was difficult for him to accept the loss of over 3,500 people in an instant. After all, these people were brothers who had gone through thick and thin with them. This time they had fallen into the ambush of the fire god race, causing them to suffer such heavy losses, which was really unexpected. If not for the fact that Long Yu had constructed the teleportation array early, their losses would have been even greater. "Little brother, words cannot express my gratitude for your kindness. To be honest, according to our original plan, this teleportation portal would only open in 3 days. I didn't expect you to be so fast." The burly man nodded at Long Yu and said gratefully, "If we can only leave the encirclement after 3 days, I'm afraid we'll only have less than 1,000 brothers left. I'm just completing a mission. When all of you are here, let's go back together." Long Yu nodded. On the teleportation formation, the light of the teleportation formation flashed continuously. Groups after groups of human race rulers appeared within the teleportation formation. These were all people that Long Yu had rescued. Most of the people could tell that they were very grateful and friendly towards Long Yu. However, there were also a few people who looked at Long Yu with hostility. Long Yu could understand how these people felt. Some of their close friends had definitely died in the encirclement of the fire god race, so they hated Long Yu for not coming earlier. However, Long Yu had already done his best. It was already very good that he had been able to save over 6,000 people. Even they hadn't expected that Long Yu would come so quickly. If there were still people who were unhappy with him, then Long Yu had no other choice. It was impossible for everyone in this world to be satisfied with him. Long Yu couldn't care less about what those people thought of him. He only needed to ensure the safety of his own people. As for these people, he only treated them as a mission. Although it was a little cold-blooded to say this way of thinking could help Long Yu avoid a lot of trouble on many occasions. The battlefield wasn't a game. People dying was a common thing. There were some people that Long Yu could save, and he would do his best to save them. However, there were some people who would die regardless of whether Long Yu was there or not. Long Yu couldn't do anything about these people. After all, he wasn't a god. He couldn't care so much. He wasn't even a demigod. Given the current situation, even if a demigod came, how long could he save them in advance? It could be imagined that once the demigod of the demon race appeared, the demigod of the fire god race would also appear. This place would become even more of a stalemate. In the end, no one knew how many people would return alive. Very quickly, human sovereigns began to appear in the teleportation array. The group on this side gradually grew, and finally, a 7th phase Sovereign Legion commander led the others over. In the entire void, over 6,000 people appeared in front of Long Yu. It could be said that basically everyone who could come was here. The remaining people who didn't escape with the commander of the ruler army were definitely responsible for staying in the encirclement and destroying the teleportation formation that they teleported out from. Otherwise, the experts of the fire god race just needed to follow this teleportation formation and directly chase after them. In that case, the teleportation formation that Long Yu had constructed would be meaningless. Of course, everyone could also choose to destroy the teleportation formation here, but doing so would be very unsafe. If they were a step too slow, the experts of the fire god race would catch up to them. Even a 7th phase great ruler would be able to protect the teleportation formation for a moment. In that moment, even more experts of the fire god race would catch up. In the end, the situation would be the same as before. Therefore, someone had to stay at the other end to destroy the teleportation formation. 300 brothers stayed at the other end to destroy the last teleportation formation for us. The Legion commander shouted and waved his hand. We can return home because of the conditions created by these 300 brave brothers. Now let's rush back. Don't look back. Kill all the people of the fire god race we meet on the way. Don't leave a single one alive. Charge. Kill. The aura of more than 6,000 people roaring at the same time was really deafening, especially when these 6,000 people were all experts of the sovereign's secret realm. Among them, many were shedding tears. It was obvious that among the 300 brothers who stayed behind, there might be friends that they knew, close brothers, and so on. The sacrifice of these 300 people was for the survival of more than 6,000 people. No one forced the 300 people to sacrifice themselves. They were all voluntary sacrifices. Among them, many people stayed at the periphery to defend against the attack of the fire god race. The others were in the center to destroy the teleportation formation. In the end, they were all sacrificed together. Although Long Yu didn't see the scene, he could imagine it. If it was Red Oriole, Shu Chan, Lu Yuan, and so on who made such a sacrifice, how would Long Yu feel now? It was also this feeling that made Long Yu constantly strive to become stronger so that such a situation could be prevented from happening at the root. However, he was far from that level now. On the path of martial arts, even if he reached the peak, he might not be able to reach that level unless he could become a demigod. However, not to mention the difficulty of becoming a demigod, even if he became a demigod, would he be able to completely protect the people around him? It was not necessarily so. Demigods also had a death date. When Long Yu saw so many demigod corpses in the ancient ruins of the multi-winged race, he knew that even demigods were not invincible in this world. Even demigods were extremely fragile in front of some existences. He recalled the scene in his dream again. The abyssal dragon emperor, who was soaring in the sky, was smashed by a few pillars of light. He was at the peak of the demigod level, but he was crushed easily by the few pillars of light. His entire body was shattered, and he couldn't resist at all. Other than the real gods, what other existences could do that? I just don't know if the real gods still exist now. If they exist, where are they located? Long Yu sighed in his heart. The Dominator Legion began to set off, rushing back to the territory of the human race. They had to go back as soon as possible. They couldn't afford to lose more people. Of course, Long Yu followed them back. Along the way, he saw many elites of the fire god race being crushed to death by the angry human dominators without the slightest ability to resist. There were even many people who flew in all directions, capturing some of the escaping elites of the fire god race and killing them. In the eyes of the other party, both sides were aliens, and they would fight as soon as they saw each other. There was no need to leave any survivors. Even if they did, the other party wouldn't make any deals with the human race. They would still fight as soon as they saw each other. At this time, Long Yu was the kind of person who couldn't be happier. Because he had reached an unparalleled level of compatibility with the ancient Dragon Bone Tower, he was able to use the 9 Nether Military Order. Long Yu only needed to seal the corpses of the Fire God race members killed by the human sovereigns into the ancient Dragon Bone Tower, and he would be able to transform them into creatures of darkness. The process of turning dark creatures required some time, but it wouldn't take too long. About a day, he could turn a third-phase Great Dominator alien for Long Yu's use. Therefore, in the following part of the journey, Long Yu could be said to have gained a lot. As long as the Fire God race appeared in the vicinity, they would all be killed. Then, Long Yu would seal them in the ancient Dragon Bone Tower, waiting for them to be turned into dark creatures. In just a day, the group arrived at the fiery spatial barrier. In the space of Long Yu's ancient Dragon Bone Tower, There were already the corpses of 200 elites of the fire god race. Chapter 1408. To be more precise, the ancient Dragon Bone Tower's space was filled with the corpses of the fire god race's elite patrols. With Long Yu's current strength, it would take him at least half a year to turn these corpses into darkness creatures. This speed was undoubtedly a little slow, but Long Yu wasn't in a hurry. In any case, he didn't need these darkness creatures for the time being. He would first turn them one by one, and when he needed them, it would be enough to send a few. After all, these were all third-phase Dominator Realm darkness creatures. Generally speaking, 4 or 5 of them were enough to deal with most of the situations that Long Yu faced. If 4 or 5 couldn't deal with it, then even if Long Yu sent 40 or 50, it might not be enough. There wasn't much meaning. Soon, everyone arrived in front of the fiery spatial barrier. A few 7th-phase Dominator Army commanders and vice-commanders worked together and launched a fierce attack on the barrier. In just a breath's time, the fiery spatial barrier was shattered by the huge force. It couldn't stop the entire ruler army at all. There were many fire god race warriors nearby, as if they were monitoring their movements. However, a small team from the ruler army quickly rushed forward and killed all the fire god race warriors. These ordinary fire god race warriors were only 1st or 2nd phase dominators. Most of them were only upper and middle dominators. Long Yu couldn't be bothered to seal these corpses. Even if they were turned into darkness creatures, they wouldn't have much combat power. He had a lot of 3rd phase dominator corpses now, so he didn't need to seal these weaker existences. The ruler army was like a hot knife through butter. They wiped out all the fire god race warriors they encountered along the way. "Little brother, are you going back to hand in the mission now?" The burly army commander came to Long Yu's side and asked Long Yu. Although he had escaped, he didn't have a smile on his face. After all, his ruler army had sacrificed too much this time. They had lost almost a third of their manpower. Compared to handing in the mission, I have something more important to do. Long Yu shook his head and said in a deep voice, "I wonder if Senior knows where Commander Long Zitian is now? I heard that he seems to be carrying out a strategic deployment in an area nearby." "The commander of the Heavenly Dragon Army? I know where he is, but our army is going back to rest now. If you want to find the commander of the Heavenly Dragon Army, I can give you a jade slip with his current coordinates recorded in it." The Legion commander didn't ask Long Yu why he was looking for Long Zitian and what his relationship with Long Zitian was because he knew that it had nothing to do with him. Long Yu had come ahead of time to complete the strategic mission and save the majority of the ruler's army, making him very grateful. Helping Long Yu out a little was something he should do. Thank you, Senior." Long Yu nodded and let out a sigh of relief. He had finally found where Long Zitian was. In any case, it would be easier to find him in the nearby starfield. However, now that the ruler legion had forcefully escaped the encirclement, the fire god race would probably be furious. It was very likely that they would search everywhere. Long Yu had to be more careful while searching for Long Zitian. After getting the news about Long Zitian, Long Yu separated from the ruler's army. There was no point in continuing to follow them. Long Yu traveled alone and once again returned to the lonely state he had been in at the beginning. Very soon, within a radius of tens of thousands of miles, not a single figure appeared. Whether it was the human race or the fire god race, they were quite scattered in this area. However, it might not be certain after a while. The fire god race was likely to send a large force to search for the ruler's army, or even intercept them. But that had nothing to do with Long Yu. Logically speaking, the ruler's army had already run so far away, so the fire god race shouldn't be able to catch up. Long Yu shook his head and threw the matter of the ruler's army to the back of his mind. Then, he followed the starfield coordinates recorded in the jade slip and headed towards Long Zitian's location alone. Only now did Long Yu know that the ruler's army commanded by Long Zitian was called the Heavenly Dragon Army. It seemed to be a very famous army in the human race's territory. Long Yu was indifferent to this. He just wanted to see his so-called father and ask him why he abandoned him and his mother and came to the beyond heaven world alone. In 2 days, Long Yu traveled hundreds of millions of miles in the starry sky and finally approached the starfield coordinates recorded in the jade slip. When he arrived at this place, Long Yu had a different feeling. It seemed that the void was filled with a kind of oppressive aura. He looked around, including after activating the balanced light. He used his spiritual awareness to sense the surroundings, but he didn't find the existence of anything. This made him a little confused. Could it be that the heavenly dragon army commanded by Long Zitian was not here? He had already arrived near the center of the coordinates, but he didn't see anyone. Or perhaps the heavenly dragon army had already completed their strategic deployment and returned to the battlefield fortress. Feeling the oppressive aura in this starfield, Long Yu became more and more confused. It was obvious that something had happened in this place, but he couldn't tell what it was. Transform into nothingness. Long Yu had no choice. In order to prevent any accidents from happening, he directly transformed into nothingness and hid in the nothingness space, completely disappearing from this void. After entering the nothingness space, Long Yu began to carefully observe his surroundings. He found that this place seemed to have been set up with some kind of magic formation trap. The oppressive aura came from the magic formation trap hidden in the dark. Although he didn't know what kind of magic formation trap it was, Long Yu was sure that it definitely existed in this space. Obviously, the Heavenly Dragon Army's previous strategic deployment was to set up a magic formation trap here. However, as for why this magic formation trap was set up, Long Yu had no idea. Long Yu had no idea where the people of the Heavenly Dragon Army had gone. The only thing he could do now was to hide in this place and see what would happen in this place. However, he didn't hide for long before he saw 2 figures suddenly appear out of thin air in this void. They were 2 human cultivators with the cultivation of a rank 3 great ruler. Looking at their attire, they should belong to the alien battlefield legion. As for which legion, Long Yu didn't know. Could it be the Heavenly Dragon Army? After these 2 people appeared out of thin air, they seemed to be a little confused. They looked around and saw that there was no one around, so they scratched their heads. Strange, I just saw a figure here. Why did he suddenly disappear? We can't be wrong. Someone must have come. I don't know which human kid it is. Now that he is hiding, we can't find him at all. It seems that he is very good at hiding. The 2 of them looked at each other and nodded. Then, it seemed as if they were going to use some sort of method to find out who was hiding nearby. Of course, they were looking for Long Yu. Long Yu's heart moved. He didn't wait for the other party to use any method. He immediately appeared and flew out of the void. You too, I'm here. I accepted a strategic mission and came here. Are the 2 of you members of the Heavenly Dragon Army? After Long Yu appeared, he asked the 2 people directly. However, he didn't go near them because he wasn't sure where they stood. In any case, Long Yu was the most cautious person. He wouldn't put himself in any danger if he wasn't certain. When the 2 of them saw Long Yu appear out of thin air, they were stunned for a moment. Then, they were incomparably amazed, because they never expected that the person who had hidden himself in the vicinity, the one they couldn't find, was actually a human youth with a higher sovereign realm cultivation. Without a doubt, Long Yu's martial arts realm shocked the 2 people once again. However, these 2 people were also people who had seen the world. They didn't stay stunned for too long. One of them immediately reacted and said to Long Yu with a solemn expression, "Our strategic deployment is a secret. How could you have received a strategic mission?" At the same time, the other person said to this person through divine consciousness, "I can feel the demigod aura of the demon race from this kid. It should be enough to prove that he isn't an alien race in disguise." The demigod aura he sensed naturally came from the first-class honor badge in Long Yu's hand. Long Yu showed it and said, "All right, to be honest, I accepted another strategic mission and came to this area. I also wanted to find my father, Long Zitian. Is he here?" This was a big piece of news. The two people were dumbfounded. Father? Long Zitian? Wasn't their army commander always single? Why did he suddenly have a son? However, looking at the genuine first-class honor badge in Long Yu's hand, it couldn't be forged. Such a person shouldn't be joking about such a thing. Come in with us first. We are from the Sky Dragon Army. If you want to see Commander Long, we will go and inform him first, one of them said to Long Yu. Next, he waved his hand towards Long Yu. A wave of world energy suddenly enveloped Long Yu's body, wanting to bring him to another space. Now, Long Yu finally understood why he couldn't see any people from the Sky Dragon Army here. It turned out that the entire Sky Dragon Army was located in another small world. The small world mark had some kind of hiding function, so there was no trace of anyone in the entire void. Long Yu could be said to be struggling now. He was still a little worried that the other party wasn't from the Sky Dragon Army. However, on second thought, if the other party really had evil intentions, he only needed to take out the 9 Hell Tablet and it would be enough to solve everything. Let's go. Long Yu nodded and didn't resist the world energy. Then, he followed the two people and completely disappeared from the void. Chapter 1409. What appeared in front of Long Yu was a fortress-like building suspended in the void. The whole thing seemed to be made of steel, and one could tell that its defense was extremely strong. The whole building was not the slightest bit smaller than a battlefield fortress. In terms of aura, it even surpassed some battlefield fortresses. This is the base of our Heavenly Dragon Corps. The commander is inside. Come in and take a rest first. We will go and inform you. The two patrolmen who led Long Yu in said to Long Yu. One of them stayed behind to bring him over, while the other disappeared in a flash. Long Yu knew that they used the power of this small world. They could appear anywhere in this small world at any time. They should have gone to inform Long Zitian. As for Long Yu, he followed the other person to the location of the steel fortress. Along the way, he saw many patrolmen passing by, and they all looked over strangely. Then, the person who led Long Yu explained to these people one by one, saying that he was the son of Long Zitian's commander, and that he had come to look for someone. As soon as this was said, everyone had a surprised expression. It was obvious that no one knew that Long Zitian actually had a son. This was extremely explosive news. Long Yu was also convinced by these people's gossiping heart. Could it be that Long Zitian could tolerate others talking about him behind his back? Soon, Long Yu was brought into the steel fortress by that person. A burst of killing aura hit him in the face, making Long Yu feel full of solemnity. This was a battlefield. Long Yu could feel that an extremely bloody battle had taken place in this steel fortress. The bloodstains left on the walls, the dents that were smashed, and so on all represented that a battle had taken place here. These traces of battle could obviously be removed, but they were not removed. Obviously, they wanted to leave them as a warning or memento. Long Yu understood this mentality. After all, there wasn't a single moment that was absolutely safe on the battlefield of the foreign races. Although the steel fortress seemed to be very safe, no one could let their guard down. Otherwise, a disaster might befall them. Long Yu was brought to a relatively simple room. Then the guide smiled and said, "Please wait for a moment, we have already brought the news to the commander. If there are no accidents, he will come to see you soon." "Thank you." Long Yu nodded his head. Then, he walked around the room, sizing it up. Even in this simple guest room, there were many traces of battle. For example, near the central stone table and stone bench, there was a lot of blood stains. There were also some signs of corrosion, which should have been left behind by previous battles. It seemed that this steel fortress had been invaded by enemies before, but they had been repelled by the Heavenly Dragon Legion. Although they had been repelled, they had also left behind many sacrifices. These sacrifices also served as a warning to the remaining people that they could not let their guard down at any time. In just 20 years, Long Zitian left the heavenly mandate continent and the realm of 9 serenities and came to the outer heavens world. At the very most, he owned this steel fortress and became the commander of the army on the battlefield in just over 10 years. Long Yu thought to himself with a slightly complicated feeling. He had always heard that Long Zitian was his father. As for this, he had only heard it from people on the heavenly mandate continent. From the clan leader of the Tang Empire Jintian clan, Bai Yunzong, the clan leader of the Feng family, Feng Chang'e, as well as the Mo family, the Long family, the Chu family, and so on, Long Yu learned everything about his father, Long Zitian. But after leaving the heavenly mandate island, he never heard any news about Long Zitian until he met the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor from the ascetic alliance in the holy city of the 5 emperors. Even the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor could not tell Long Yu about Long Zitian and disappeared. Later, when Long Yu came to the outer heavens world, he finally got news about Long Zitian after the end of the battle with the Ice God clan on the battlefield of the alien race. It had been at least half a year since he started looking for him. Long Zitian led the army of the ruler on the battlefield of the alien race. It was said that he had been there for more than 5 years. In these 5 years, he had made a name for himself and became one of the heroes near the border of the human clan. For such a person, in addition to his obsession to find his father, Long Yu was also curious about him. He did not know how Long Zitian, who had been trapped in the heavenly prison Thunder Pool, had escaped and made it all the way to this day. Long Yu waited quietly. Although there was someone next to him, there was no more communication between them. Only that person kept looking at Long Yu. Suddenly, that person said in surprise, "By the way, I heard that there was a boy named Long Yu who killed 3 demigods of the alien race in the demon clan's territory. Is that you?" Long Yu was a little surprised. He had never said that his name was Long Yu. "Yes, it's me. How did you know?" Long Yu was a little curious. "You said that you are the son of the commander, so your surname is most likely Long. You also have a first-class honor badge. In recent years, you are the only one who meets this condition." The man chuckled. As expected, a tiger father will not beget a dog son. The son of a commander is also a dragon among men. With that, before Long Yu could say anything, an impatient voice suddenly came from outside the room. "What the hell? What the hell? What tiger father, dog son? I don't remember having a son." As this clear voice came into the room, a young man in a white robe appeared at the door and stepped into the room with narrowed eyes. As soon as he saw this person, Long Yu knew immediately that this was the person he was looking for. Long Zitian. Of course, Long Yu didn't know this from the fact that they were related by blood, but from the other party's appearance. It had to be said that the person in front of him looked extremely similar to Long Yu. Especially those eyes, they seemed to be carved from the same mold. "Lord Commander, it's not that I want to say this, but look at this kid. He looks exactly like you. I don't believe that he's not your son," the patrolling soldier who brought Long Yu over said with a strange expression. When he heard Long Zitian deny it like this, he thought to himself, could it be that there are many other things involved? "Of course, Lord Commander, you can solve your own matters. We will take our leave first, hee." The person didn't dare to gossip. After saying this, he immediately turned around and left the room. "Get lost." The white-clothed youth slightly raised his eyelids and waved his hand to let the person leave. Then, he turned around and started to examine Long Yu again. Hearing him say "get lost" didn't have any insulting nature. It was like a joke between brothers and it made people feel close. Long Yu didn't expect Long Zitian to have such a personality. He looked delicate and pretty, but he was a bit carefree. It seemed that even those third-phase Dominator patrol soldiers dared to make fun of him. It seems that Long Zetian is quite approachable. Long Yu thought to himself. However, this didn't affect his resentment towards Long Zetian. No matter how you looked at it, Long Zetian wasn't seriously injured and on the verge of death, nor was he forced to lose his freedom. There was no reason for him to abandon his wife and son. What's more, this guy didn't seem to want to admit that he had a son. You look a lot like me. Long Zetian swept a few glances at Long Yu as he spoke lazily. You don't want to admit it? Long Yu couldn't be bothered to say anything more to him and asked him directly. How do you want this commander to admit to something that doesn't have a son? Long Zetian suddenly became energetic. He opened his eyes and quickly walked in front of Long Yu. Come. Tell me, which girl especially admires this commander and wants to become this commander's wife? That's why she asked you to act out this play. When Long Yu heard this, he immediately opened his eyes wide. Did this guy really think that, or was he joking? If he really thought that way, how narcissistic was he? Of course, Long Yu also admitted that a handsome guy like him, coupled with Long Zetian's proud battlefield achievements and legends, was indeed able to attract the admiration of many girls. Cough. Long Yu hurriedly shook his head. What the hell was he thinking, however? Long Yu really didn't know how to answer Long Zetian's question. He could only change the topic and asked, Do you want to act shamelessly, or do you not remember what happened back then? 9 Serenity's realm, heavenly mandate continent. Long Yu directly mentioned these 2 words and then carefully observed Long Zetian's reaction. If the other party was pretending, then Long Yu would most likely be able to see through it. But what made Long Yu disappointed was that when Long Zetian heard Long Yu's words, he didn't have any special reaction. Instead, he laughed out loud. I'm still in the Great Ming Realm's Lotus Continent, haha. Like you, this commander has already encountered many times. Come, if you want to have any ideas about this commander, it's really a bit difficult. How about this, I'll give you some cultivation elixirs. In the future, don't take the risk to find this commander. How about it? After all, the battlefield of the alien race is too dangerous. It's not every time you can smoothly find this commander. Long Yu really didn't expect that when he came over and saw Long Zetian, it would actually be such a situation. Was this guy an idiot? Where was the legendary mighty and domineering heroic spirit of the dragon in the sky? Why didn't Long Yu feel a bit of it? Long Yu carefully stared at Long Zetian's eyes. He couldn't help but say that this pair of eyes was really handsome. However, Long Yu didn't see any awkwardness in them. This Long Zetian seemed to be born with this kind of personality. Right now, it didn't seem like he was acting at all. This made Long Yu feel extremely strange. Then it settled. This commander will make a move first. The strategic deployment here is still waiting for the prey to take the bait. I can't miss a good show. Long Zetian took 2 steps back, smiled at Long Yu, and waved his hand. He turned around and wanted to leave the room. With his cultivation of a level 7 Great Sovereign, if he wanted to leave, Long Yu simply couldn't stop him. But when he walked to the door of the room, he stopped in his tracks. Speaking of which, Long Zetian's clear voice sounded again. Chapter 14:10. Long Zetian's voice came again, which made Long Yu raise his eyebrows. Since this guy refused to admit it, did he still have something else to say? Could it be that I really had such a romantic history in the past and had a son like you? When Long Zetian said this, even his own tone was not very confident. He seemed to have some doubts about something. He was not doubting Long Yu, but his own appearance. This tone made Long Yu feel a little strange. Didn't this guy just firmly deny that he did not have a son? Don't you know what you have done? A cultivator's memory will improve as their cultivation increases. Commander Long, don't tease me. Long Yu said lightly. Whether Long Zetian was his father or not, for Long Yu, it did not affect him much. But for his mother, Bei Yuyao, the impact was too big. Back then, the status of Bei Yuyao and Long Zhaitian was completely different. Long Zhaitian was from a small country, while Bei Yuyao was from the high and mighty Heavenly Mandate Sacred Institute. She was also the daughter of the dean. The two of them could be together, so there must be a layer of love between them. Now, Bei Yuyao was still worried about Long Zhaitian. There was no doubt that if the two of them could be reconciled now, it would be considered as one of the things that Long Yu was worried about. Unfortunately, Long Zhaitian's current appearance obviously did not want to admit it. This gave Long Yu a headache. Jiuyou Realm, Heavenly Mandate Island, I will personally investigate it. If it is confirmed, I will be responsible for you. Long Zhaitian's words at this time changed from the joking tone he used before and seemed more serious. However, these words made Long Yu laugh. It is useless for you to investigate it now. The Jiuyou realm has disappeared, and Heavenly Mandate Island has also completely disappeared. Only those people and those things should still remain in the hearts of some people. Since you do not want to verify it, there is nothing I can do. My memories don't start from that time. Long Zhaitian could hear the displeasure in Long Yu's words, but his tone was still indifferent. In short, when I woke up, I was in the beyond heaven world. I don't remember anything about the past. After that, I served in the Ascetic Alliance and the Battlefield Legion. I don't have any memories of my wife and children. When these words were spoken, Long Yu finally understood why Long Zhaitian would refuse to admit it. It turned out that this fellow had amnesia. According to him, he had just woken up in the outer heavens world and had been cultivating until now. He had not had any chance to get in touch with Long Yu, Bei Yuyao, or the people on the Heavenly Mandate Island. Could it be that what Long Zhaitian said was true? However, regardless of whether what he said was true or not, Long Yu had nothing else to do now. If Long Zhaitian was pretending to have amnesia and deliberately did not want to admit about Bei Yuyao and Long Yu, then Yi Futian could not force him to admit it. In the Beyond Heaven world, there was a paternity test method, but Long Yu did not think that he could force him to do it. After all, no matter what, Long Zhaitian was a commander of the Battlefield Legion and a powerful existence of the 7th level Great Ruler. Unless Long Yu reached this level one day, his position and that of Long Zhaitian were not equal. If he wanted to ask Long Zhaitian to do something, Long Zhaitian would have the reason and strength to refuse. If Long Zhaitian really had amnesia, then the situation was quite easy to deal with. Long Yu now had the 9 underworlds tablet with him. The small world and the new martial world were also inside. Although the 9 underworlds and the divine martial world were gone, the environment of the new martial world was not much different from before. Most importantly, many people from the Great Tang Empire were in Long Yu's small world. For example, the Zhentian clan sect leader Bai Yunzong did not leave with Long Yu. Instead, he stayed in Long Yu's small world and peacefully lived out the rest of his life. Bai Yunzong was not very old, but after experiencing so many things, he had lost the fighting spirit to advance further. Of course, the key was that he had found someone he loved and could not bear to be separated from his lover. The two of them had been living in the small dragon imperial world recently, living a paradise-like life. They seemed to have a baby already. At this moment, Long Yu could let Long Zhaitian enter his small world and see Bai Yunzong. As for the other people from the Great Tang Empire, the Chu Imperial Clan, the Mo clan of the Xiang clan, the Long clan of the General clan and so on, many of them had been taken into the small world by Yu Hanxin. If he wanted to find them, he might not be able to. Since that's the case, do you want to meet the people from before? Maybe they will remind you of something? Long Yu asked tentatively. I do want to meet them, but now is not the time. Long Zhaitian laughed mischievously, as if he had returned to his previous amusing personality. Since you've come, follow this commander to watch a good show. What's going to happen in a while isn't something you can casually see. Of course, you're not someone who has never seen the world. You've even helped kill the demigods of the foreign races, but today's scene will definitely make you feel so good that you can't breathe. Long Yu really didn't know what could make him feel so good that he couldn't breathe. Even when he did it with Red Oriole, he didn't have a similar feeling. He really didn't know what it felt like to feel so good that he couldn't breathe. The Heavenly Dragon Army was carrying out their strategic deployment here. Now that Long Yu had come in, it was not convenient for him to leave immediately, as it might disrupt their strategic deployment plan. Since that was the case, Long Yu might as well stay and take a look. Then when things are over here, I'll bring some people to meet you. In any case, they're all in my small world. I hope you can think of something because of this. Long Yu nodded and agreed to Long Zai-Tian. Then, he followed Long Zai-Tian out of the room and headed towards the core of the entire steel fortress. Walking along the corridor, Long Yu noticed that after entering the core of the steel fortress, the walls on both sides of the corridor were covered with a faint layer of lightning. It was very obvious that it contained extremely tyrannical metal elemental primordial power. If the lightning energy on the walls was triggered, Long Yu was certain that with his cultivation and physical strength, he would definitely die. Long Zai-Tian should be proficient in the power of lightning elemental divine runes, and it's very likely that he has already comprehended the metal elemental primordial power. As Long Yu thought to himself, he followed Long Zai-Tian all the way to the core of the steel fortress. In this core area, many of Long Zai-Tian's people were controlling the entire steel fortress, and from here they could see some of the situation in the universe. Long Yu understood that there were so many scenes in this core area, and all of them were the situation when he first arrived in this universe. Thinking about it, when he just arrived here, his figure flashed and he was discovered, and then those two people came out to look for him. Long Yu didn't ask Long Zai-Tian what he had set up in this universe, but Long Yu couldn't help but feel the oppressive aura in this universe. If it was an ambush for the Fire God race, Long Yu really didn't think that the Fire God race would take the initiative to run into such an ambush. After all, the Fire God race's perception was very keen, and there was no reason for them not to feel the oppressive aura in this universe. To be cautious, they wouldn't rashly enter this universe. Who knew what kind of good show Long Zai-Tian was talking about? Seeing that Long Zai-Tian had actually brought Long Yu to this core area, some of the members of the Sky Dragon Legion who were originally here were a little surprised. "Boss, this can't really be your son, right? He looks a lot like you." "I think it's 80%. Otherwise, why would Boss bring him here? There are a lot of things here that are our Sky Dragon Legion's secrets." The people in this place weren't serious at all, and they actually started talking at once. Long Yu also didn't expect this situation. He didn't expect that these people would actually ridicule his commander like this, and Long Zai-Tian didn't seem to refute these people. "All of you shut up and do your own things. Don't make this commander unhappy. Don't even think about getting the mission reward when we go back this time." Long Zai-Tian looked around and snorted coldly. He sat in a position in the center, crossed his legs, and stared at the scenes in front of him. If one didn't know, they definitely wouldn't be able to tell that such a guy was actually the commander of a ruler legion. Heh. Boss, when the Fire God Legion runs over, maybe there will be a few Fire God race beauties. My collection will have some more collections. A very wretched short young man didn't care that Long Yu was next to him. He said this with a smile, causing a few people to look at him with disdain. "Fire God race beauties? Although I know that you like to collect corpses, isn't your taste too heavy?" Someone on the side said directly in disgust. "Ignore him, this guy is purely sick in the head. When I think about me being in the same legion with such a guy, I can't help but lose my appetite. I can't eat every day." Another person made a vomiting motion. "What do you guys know? This is art, do you understand?" The wretched short man looked around with disdain, and a lonely expression appeared in his eyes. Obviously, he felt that no one could understand him, and he was quite sad. But soon, he saw Long Yu, and his eyes suddenly lit up. "Hey, little boss, do you think this is considered art?" The wretched short young man raised his head at Long Yu and said, "Just like the fire god race, they are actually divided into genders, but they are not divided into men and women like us. Instead, there are 3 genders. The beauties among them are not very similar to others. Generally, they are the ones in charge of decision-making in the Fire God Legion. It is very difficult for ordinary people to see them. These corpses still have a lot of commemorative significance when we collect them." Long Yu's face darkened when he heard this. What kind of people are in the Sky Dragon Legion? Why are there all kinds of weirdos? Chapter 14:11. However, it had to be said that the wretched short youth seemed to have done a lot of research on the other races. His understanding of the Fire God race was far better than that of ordinary people. The Fire God race had 3 genders, and the females were the controllers and decision-makers. Long Yu didn't know about this even after killing so many of the Fire God race. However, Long Yu didn't know why this guy was collecting the corpses of the other races. Was it really just for commemoration like he said, or was it for some special purpose? For example, like the ball soul that Long Yu saw before, collecting the corpses of the other races and refining them into puppets to fight for them. Long Yu could only keep this question in his heart. After all, he wasn't very familiar with the other party, so it wasn't convenient for him to casually ask. If he wasn't careful, he might accidentally touch on the other party's taboo. Long Yu didn't go inside. He just leaned against the steel wall behind him, feeling the weak flow of electricity. He wasn't hurt. However, this was under the condition that the lightning divine runes weren't activated. Once they were activated, Long Yu would probably die. Now that the entire steel building was hidden in the small world, it wouldn't be easy for the other races to find it. There was no need to worry about this thing suddenly activating. The others clearly saw Long Yu's actions, but they didn't come to warn him. It was obvious that nothing would happen. Long Yu leaned against the wall, leisurely looking at the scenes in front of him. The scenes were calm, and there was nothing in the silent void. There was only the faint starlight in the distance, slowly twinkling. The entire void was extremely calm. As time passed, everyone in the core area of the steel fortress quieted down. During this time, Long Yu saw one weirdo after another. Everyone in the Sky Dragon Legion had abnormal brains, and some were even weirder than the wretched short man. There was a guy who had strung together the power cores of the other races he had killed. For example, the fire core of the Fire God race, the ice core of the Ice God race, and so on. He strung them together into a large string of beads and hung it around his neck. Every single fire pill, ice pill, etc., came from the bodies of powerful outsiders at the 7th phase sovereign realm. There were at least 40 to 50 of them, and it was a shocking sight to behold. However, don't think about using this to deter those foreign races. Those foreign races would become even more enraged after seeing this. Even if he was in a group, those foreign races would still make him their first target. This thing, other than taunting, had no other use in battle. Although these fellows had their own personalities, there was no doubt that there were a total of 12 people in the core region. Including Long Zai Tian, there were 13 of them, and every single one of them was an extremely powerful existence. Although only Long Zai Tian and the other 2 were rank 7 dominators among the 13 of them, the others were all rank 6 dominators. Moreover, their combat strength was not inferior to an ordinary rank 7 dominator. As for Long Zai Tian's battle strength, Long Yu really couldn't estimate it. Normally, when people appeared, they would have their own imposing manner. One could tell a thing or two from their imposing manner. However, Long Zai Tian's body didn't have any imposing manner at all. He was just like an ordinary hoodlum. Perhaps during battle, Long Zai Tian would display the imposing manner of a rank 7 dominator. In any case, up until now, Long Yu still didn't know what Long Zai Tian's strength was. Was he at the level of a peak rank 7 dominator like Consort Yu? Or slightly weaker? or slightly weaker. Long Yu knew nothing about this. Suddenly, traces of fire began to appear in the images in front of them. This scene caused everyone present to become excited and agitated. The appearance of the fire was clearly the prelude to the appearance of the fire god race. The show is starting. A trace of fanaticism appeared in Long Zai Tian's eyes. Then, he finally stood up from his seat with an expression of anticipation. At this time, the others also looked at the images in the field with faces full of anticipation. Only at this time, these fellows' expressions were exactly the same. It wasn't like before when each of them had their own strange expressions. Long Yu also began to watch attentively. He discovered that in the silent void of the starry sky, traces of fire constantly appeared and began to decorate the void. It seemed that this was the prelude to the arrival of the fire god race's main force. Moreover, they didn't fly over. Instead, they directly teleported over from a faraway place. This situation made Long Yu a little surprised. The fire god race directly descended from a faraway place. It was reasonable to say that the news was extremely secretive. How could the Heavenly Dragon Legion know about it and come here to lay a trap in advance? This kind of thing wasn't something that Long Yu could know. After all, this was definitely related to the entire human race's intelligence system. It was absolutely impossible for this level of information to be leaked. Otherwise, the human race was likely to face a disadvantage in the war with the Fire God race in the future. But now, since the Heavenly Dragon Legion had already set up the trap, Long Yu only needed to watch the show. When the time came, if a relatively powerful member of the Fire God race died in that star field, Long Yu could seal the corpses of the powerful members of the Fire God race in the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. If he could seal the corpse of a rank 7 dominator from the Fire God race, it would be a great improvement for Long Yu. His frontal combat strength would increase by dozens of times. Of course, if Long Yu wanted to seal such a powerful Fire God race corpse, he would still face many competitors. This was because many people in the Heavenly Dragon Legion wanted to collect the Fire God race corpses. For example, that wretched short youth. Although he didn't know why he was collecting them, it was obvious that Long Yu would definitely not be able to snatch them away from him. No matter how one looked at it, these Fire God race were prey that belonged to the Heavenly Dragon Army. At best, Long Yu was just a spectator. He didn't want to owe others favors, so he had to wait for the other party to pick first before picking the rest. He couldn't let the other party take all the Fire God race corpses, right? Long Yu thought of this and continued to watch the scene. The traces of fire were the premonition that the Fire God Legion was about to arrive. At this time, the other party's arrival was inevitable. They would definitely appear in this place and fall into the Heavenly Dragon Legion's trap. At this moment, none of the other party's Fire God race had really arrived, so it was impossible for them to detect the oppressive aura in this place. No wonder this place is such an obvious trap. Ordinary people will bypass it when passing by, but it just happens to be effective against the other party's long-range teleportation. Long Yu was suddenly enlightened at this moment. He had to admire the human clan's Battlefield Legion or the Heavenly Dragon Legion's ability to obtain information. If they could know in advance that the Fire God Legion would arrive in this place, in this void star field, how could they collect information? In any case, Long Yu couldn't do it in any case. A good show was about to begin. The traces of fire in the void gradually enlarged, and then figures of the Fire God race appeared out of thin air. Each of them was at least in the Great Dominator realm. This turned out to be a Great Dominator Legion. When the group of Fire God race figures appeared, they descended into the void one after another. They seemed to have noticed that something was wrong. It seemed that, after some urgent communication, they wanted to stop the people behind them from teleporting over. However, the teleportation had already begun, and they couldn't stop it at all. Therefore, all of them could only strive to escape in all directions as fast as possible. Because the other party's teleportation distance was too far, The people who teleported over could not send back the news here, causing a serious imbalance in the information on the fire god race's side. They discovered that something was wrong and wanted to stop the follow-up troops from teleporting, but the follow-up troops didn't know the situation here at all. The teleportation continued, but every time the figures of the fire god race arrived, they immediately noticed that something was wrong and wanted to teleport out of the void. Unfortunately, the Heavenly Dragon Legion had already expected such a move. Therefore, in this void, from the moment the traces of fire began to light up, a layer of space restriction had been activated. All space divine runes in this void were sealed and couldn't be used. None of the fire god race could escape. At least, they couldn't use space divine runes to teleport away. Therefore, they began to fly into the distance. More and more fire god race people were teleported over, and they gradually became stronger. Second Great Dominator Realm, Third Great Dominator Realm, even Fifth Great Dominator Realm, all the way to Seventh Great Dominator Realm. A total of about 3,000 people, the entire Great Dominator Legion, were gradually teleported over. All of them were teleported over in less than the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. The fire god race Great Dominators who ran the furthest had not run out of the range of this starfield's trap. "It's about time, let's start." As Long Zitian laughed loudly, everyone saw that in the void, countless lightning bolts emerged without warning. The lightning bolts condensed from metal elemental power were like an inescapable net, completely covering the 3,000 fire god race Great Dominators. The sudden attack of the trap caught the fire god race Great Dominators off guard, but they didn't panic. They joined forces according to their small teams and began to work together to resist the bombardment of the lightning bolt. In particular, there were a few 7th Great Dominators who joined forces with the other fire god race Great Dominators to build a tyrannical defensive barrier, so the lightning bolts didn't break it for a while. However, the other fire god race suffered a lot. Most of the fire god race Great Dominators were only 1st Great Dominators to 3rd Great Dominators. There were at least 2,000 of them, and there were no other powerful existences nearby. These fire god race Great Dominators joined forces and set up a defensive array, but they couldn't resist for long. In just a few breaths, the entire fire god race Great Dominator Legion had been killed or injured in the lightning bolts. This method of burying people on the ground is really amazing. Without shedding a drop of blood, they can wipe out the opponent's entire Great Dominator Legion. Long Yu was deeply shocked by this scene. One had to know that the Sky Dragon Legion was only a Great Dominator Legion. It was obviously much worse than a Great Dominator Legion. But now, the Fire God race Great Dominator Legion was directly defeated. Chapter 14:12. In Long Yu's line of sight, the Fire God race's great sovereign army that teleported over from an unknown distance and wanted to do something here was directly wiped out by the Heavenly Dragon Legion's ambush in advance. Even some of the Fire God race's great sovereign experts, after struggling for a while, were completely killed by the lightning condensed from the metal element's primordial power. In this empty starry sky, the 3,000 Fire God race's great sovereign experts were either dead or injured. Their corpses were scattered all over the place. They were all charred black under the bombardment of the thunder power. The flames on their bodies were completely extinguished, turning into a pile of charcoal. From the first Fire God race's great sovereign to the moment all 3,000 Fire God race's great sovereign experts were killed in less than half an hour. During this time, Long Yu saw the Fire God race's great sovereign constantly struggling, but they couldn't escape the cage formed by the thunder trap. Done, now it's time to harvest. Long Zai Tian snapped his fingers and then gave an order. Logistics team, go out and bring back all the Fire God race's corpses and everything on them. Start distributing the spoils of war. Yes, boss. Immediately, someone happily agreed, and then ran out to inform the logistics team. Then, Long Zai Tian turned his head and glanced at Long Yu. He chuckled and said, "Brat, come with us. Everyone who sees will have a share." "How does your heavenly dragon legion divide the things?" Long Yu asked. "Won't you know if you follow me?" Long Zai-Tian laughed, then waved his hand, and the dozen or so people around him immediately stood up and followed him to divide the things. Long Yu didn't ask much and followed the crowd all the way. During this time, the wretched short young man walked with Long Yu and smiled at Long Yu. "I heard that you faced the alien demigods head-on. How did it feel?" Faced head-on? When Long Yu heard this, he suddenly felt uncomfortable and said awkwardly, "Do you want to try it too? In fact, there are many such opportunities." "There are many opportunities, but very few can survive." Sigh. The wretched-looking short young man sighed with a melancholy expression. "If I can get a demigod corpse of an alien race one day, maybe I can also perceive something from it and step into the demigod realm." Hearing this, Long Yu had some ideas. There was no doubt that the Heavenly Dragon Legion was an extremely powerful legion. If they were recruited into the Void Galaxy, wouldn't that make the entire Void Galaxy a lot stronger? As for the decision of the Heavenly Dragon Legion, it was naturally in the hands of Long Zai-Tian. However, it was impossible for Long Yu to bring this up to him. Only if Long Zai-Tian admitted that he was his father would Long Yu consider telling Long Zai-Tian something about the Void Milky Way. Otherwise, there would be no reason for Long Yu to persuade him to join. Besides, in fact, Long Yu didn't need the combat ability of the Heavenly Dragon Legion very much. After all, the Void Galaxy was still in a period of stable development and wouldn't encounter any battles with the alien races. For a legion like the Heavenly Dragon Legion, it was impossible for them to develop steadily. Only on the battlefield of the alien races could their strength be exerted to the fullest extent. As they moved forward, they kept teleporting and moving through the steel fortresses. Soon, they came to a huge square. In the center of the square, the charred corpses of the Fire God clan had been piled up like a mountain. Around the square, members of the Heavenly Dragon Legion were constantly gathering according to their squads. They were very orderly. About 8,000 people had arrived. The square was very spacious and could easily accommodate 8,000 people. It didn't seem crowded at all. In the center, many people were sorting out the corpses of the Fire God clan members, separating all kinds of cultivation resources from them. The battle weapons were put together with the battle weapons, the pills were put together with the pills, the fragments of the small worlds were put together with each other, and so on. The battle weapons and elixirs of the Fire God clan were useless to the human clan and the monster clan. However, the battle weapons and elixirs could be recast and decomposed into weapon refining materials. As for elixirs, they could also be decomposed into some special materials, which could be used by the human clan and the monster clan to refine their own elixirs. As for the fragments of the micro-worlds, they were useful. In every micro-world of the Fire God clan's great sovereign, there might be a lot of cultivation resources. These 3,000 Fire God clan's great sovereigns had 3,000 micro-world fragments, many of which were intact. This was definitely a great fortune. Even if the 3,000 people of the Heavenly Dragon Legion were to share it, everyone would still get a lot of things. The rest were the corpses of the Fire God clan's great sovereigns. Among them, there were 12 7th Phase Fire God clan's great sovereigns and 88 6th Phase Fire God clan's great sovereigns. Long Yu had his eyes on them. It would take a long time for these corpses to turn into dark creatures. However, once he succeeded, Long Yu's direct combat strength would increase by many times. At this moment of harvest, all the members of the Heavenly Dragon Legion revealed happy expressions. They waited expectantly for Long Zai-Tian to distribute the spoils of war. All the battle weapons, the weapon refinement department will take them. All the elixirs, the pill refinement department will come and take them. All the Fire God clan's great sovereigns' corpses, please register with me. The logistics officer will distribute them accordingly. Also, these micro-world fragments will be distributed according to the teams. The Spell Formation Department will get 12 7th Phase Sovereigns' corpses and 88 6th Phase Sovereigns' corpses. Hearing Long Zai-Tian distribute these things, Long Yu felt that it was quite fair. This time, they were able to kill all 3,000 of the Fire God clan's great sovereigns' corpses. Without a doubt, the Spell Formation was the greatest contributor. Since that was the case, it was normal for the Spell Formation Department to get the best reward. How many cultivation resources would there be in the small worlds of the 7th and 6th Phase Sovereigns? It was hard to imagine. Moreover, there were 12 7th Phase Sovereigns and 88 6th Phase Sovereigns. Previously, Long Yu had heard that the Heavenly Dragon Legion's Spell Formation Department only had a total of 300 people. Every single one of them had extremely high attainments in the field of spell formations. The Thunder Trap formation had been laid out by them together. On average, every 3 people would get a 6th Phase or 7th Phase Sovereign Realm micro-world fragment to explore. Everything they obtained would belong to them. Such a harvest was enough to make everyone jealous. However, no one in the Heavenly Dragon Legion had any expressions of jealousy. They only had respect for the Spell Formation Department. Clearly, this was what they deserved. Such a distribution was completely fair. If they had obtained the spoils from the battlefield, then the Spell Formation Department wouldn't have gotten anything good. In this regard, it was completely fair within the Heavenly Dragon Legion. This gave Long Yu some inspiration. In the Void Galaxy, he could set up an independent spell formation department to study defensive spell formations, trap spell formations, and attack spell formations. Now that the Heaven Fire Doyen had joined the Void Galaxy, the Spirit Formation Department could be chosen by the Heaven Fire Doyen. After the selection, the Spirit Formation Department would be formed, and the people would be managed by the Heaven Fire Doyen himself. But this way, the Heaven Fire Doyen will be managing both the Weaponry Refinement Department and the Spirit Formation Department. It will be a little busy, Long Yu thought to himself. Then, he shook his head. There was nothing he could do about it. There was no one in the Void Galaxy who had reached a higher level in the field of spell formations like the Heaven Fire Doyen. For the time being, this was the only plan. In the future, Long Yu might meet a top genius who specialized in spell formations. He had to seize the opportunity to pull them into the Void Galaxy. Since Long Zai-Tian wanted Long Yu to participate in the distribution of the spoils, Long Yu didn't stand on ceremony. He immediately registered with Long Zai-Tian that he needed a few Fire God race sovereigns' corpses. The higher their cultivation base, the better, and the more, the better. In short, what Long Yu meant was that as long as it was a Fire God race sovereign corpse that was above the 3rd phase, the rest could be given to Long Yu. If there wasn't any, then forget it. The corpses of the Fire God race with lower cultivation were useless to Long Yu. Just the 3rd phase Great Dominator rank Fire God race's elite patrol corpses, Long Yu already had over 200 of them. He didn't have the time to transform these corpses into darkness creatures. Therefore, he registered with Long Zai-Tian to get as many high-level Fire God race corpses as possible. He didn't have any requirements in terms of quantity. Long Yu didn't need too much, and he didn't lack much. It was better if he could get a share, but it didn't matter if he couldn't. Only with this mentality could he avoid being disappointed. After all, to the Heavenly Dragon Legion, Long Yu was just an outsider. When it was time to distribute the spoils, Long Yu didn't have the right to ask for too much. Just wait for the news. After Long Yu finished registering, Long Zai-Tian smiled at him and nodded. We've finished our strategic deployment, it's about time to go back. 1 day later, your things will be distributed to you. 7 days later, we'll return to the vicinity of the battlefield fortress. Do you want to come with us, or? There's no rush to make this decision. Since the Fire God race's great ruler legion is settled, perhaps it's time to let some people meet you. Long Yu pondered for a moment. My mother, Beiyuyao, and Senior White Cloud are in my small world right now. If they hear that you're still alive, they'll definitely be very happy. I just don't know if you're willing to meet them." Hearing this, Long Zai Tian seemed to be at a loss. "Your mother is the one you're talking about, my wife? When we were on the 9 Nether Realms Heavenly Mandate Island." "That's right." Long Yu was now sure that the Long Zai Tian in front of him was his father. It all depended on whether the other party admitted it or not. If he admitted it, that would be for the best. If he didn't, Long Yu couldn't do anything to him. If Long Zai Tian really lost his memory, would he remember something when he saw Beiyuyao, Feng Chang'e, and White Cloud? Chapter 14:13. "Then let this commander go meet them," Yi Zichen said. Long Zai Tian waved his hand. "Let's go, kid. Follow me to my room." The spoils of war were more or less distributed. Basically, everyone was happy. Every member of the Heavenly Dragon Corps got their share of the spoils of war. On Long Yu's side, the Fire God race's bodies would take another day to be distributed. He was not in a hurry. Since Long Zai Tian wanted to see Beiyuyao and Bai Yunzong, Long Yu would meet with them first. Hopefully, Long Zai Tian would remember something. The main thing was Beiyuyao. Long Yu had been cultivating, and did not have the time to accompany her. If Long Zai Tian remembered the past, he could naturally bring her along. Long Zai Tian turned and left alone, leaving the rest of the Heavenly Dragon Corps in the square, allowing them to disperse. Long Yu followed Long Zai Tian, preparing to arrange their meeting. Long Zai Tian's room was not luxurious. Instead, it had a kind of iron-blooded style. The surrounding walls were surrounded by steel, and a somber atmosphere surrounded the entire room. The room wasn't big. After Long Yu came in, he saw a simple bed, a simple stone table, and a few simple stone stools. After all, this was the interior of a fortress used for battle, so it was impossible for there to be any palace-like things here. "This place is not suitable for meeting. I'll go to your small world." Long Zai Tian returned to his room, glanced around, and then shook his head. He said to Long Yu, "Come in with me. You know, a pure person like me blushes when I see a woman. If I'm alone, I won't be able to speak." In any case, Long Yu didn't believe it at all. Long Yu had experienced Long Zai Tian's shamelessness. However, since he wanted to enter Long Yu's small world, it was for the best. Otherwise, Long Yu would have to bring the others out. Not only would it be troublesome, but it would also increase the psychological burden of the others. Now that Long Zai Tian took the initiative to see them, there was no doubt that he took care of their feelings. Long Yu felt that this was quite appropriate. "Then let's go." Long Yu nodded and raised his hand. The energy of the world enveloped Long Zai Tian and himself, and then he urged them to directly enter Long Yu's small world. The 9 Underworld Prison Tablet appeared in Long Zai Tian's room, but there was no need to worry about safety. Who would dare to barge into the commander's room for no reason? However, just in case, Long Yu still asked Little Su to stand guard outside. If there was any special situation, Long Yu could immediately come out to deal with it. "Who should we meet first?" Long Yu asked Long Zai Tian. "White Cloud, you're talking about the leader of the Jintian clan, right?" Long Zai Tian squinted his eyes and said. When he arrived at Long Yu's pocket world, he saw an endless void. Not far away was the continent constructed by the Neo-Martial world. Since he wanted to meet other people, he naturally had to meet them one by one. This should have a better effect on recovering his memories. Ever since Long Yu left the Feng family for the Jintian clan, he knew about White Cloud. He also heard the story of his father, Long Zai Tian, from White Cloud. White Cloud Track was slightly older than Long Zai Tian, but the two of them were very good friends. It was just that Long Zai Tian was expelled from the Great Tang Empire, and was chased all the way to the Heavenly Prison Lightning Pool before completely disappearing. Now in Long Yu's pocket world, White Cloud had found his true love and was living a stable life. In the Northern Snow Empire, some people's status was superior to others. For example, White Cloud, Beiyuyao, and other people related to Long Yu. Ever since they came to the Neo-Martial world, they lived in the Northern Snow Empire, which was in the sky above the center of the Neo-Martial world. Although they had special privileges, they rarely appeared in front of others to exercise their privileges. Because of their relationship with Long Yu, they were considered distinguished guests in the Northern Snow Empire. Yu Hanxin gave them some special care, such as some free cultivation resources and so on. However, whether it was White Cloud or Beiyuyao, they all lived their own lives and rarely cared about other things. Long Yu first brought Long Zai Tian to the top of a barren mountain in the Northern Snow Empire. White Cloud Trax had recently brought his beloved to live here. In fact, Long Yu also knew the woman beside White Cloud. She was the former leader of the Great Tang Empire's ice sect, Tang Qin. During the 7-clan martial competition, only the ice sect stood firmly on the side of the Jintian clan, establishing a friendly relationship between the two major sections. Later, White Cloud and Tang Qin developed a good impression of each other and naturally came together. Now, they lived in the wilderness of the Northern Snow Empire and lived a leisurely and carefree life. The two even had a young son, who was still in swaddling clothes and was far from growing up. In fact, even Tang Qin recognized Long Zai Tian, let alone White Cloud. However, Long Zai Tian might not necessarily recognize Tang Qin. After all, when Long Zai Tian was expelled from the Long family and the Great Tang Empire, Tang Qin was only a core disciple of the ice sect. There was a huge difference in status between the two. At this moment, White Cloud and Tang Qin were resting in the courtyard leisurely. Tang Qin held her baby in her arms and chatted happily with White Cloud and Long Zai Tian. In the distance, Long Yu and Long Zaitian's figures slowly appeared on the horizon. Then, they quickly flew over. Bai Yunzong and Tang Qin immediately saw them. "Who is it?" White Cloud and Tang Qin were obviously a little surprised. No one had ever come looking for them since they had lived in this place. Apart from Beiyuyao, who would occasionally come over, no one else had. Now, the two figures in the sky were clearly not Beiyuyao. Furthermore, the two figures seemed to be heading for this mountain peak. Basically, there was no other possibility that they were here for White Cloud. Soon, Long Yu and Long Zai Tian gradually approached the mountain peak. When White Cloud and Tang Qin saw the figures of the two figures, they immediately looked extremely surprised. "I was wondering who it was. It's actually Long Yu and Long Zai Tian. He found his father?" White Cloud's face was full of surprise at first, then it was full of surprise. For him, if there was any regret in this life, it would be that his brother Long Zai Tian's fate was unknown. Back then, when Long Zai Tian was expelled from the Tang Empire, he was unable to stop it. This was the pain of his life. But now Long Zai Tian, who he could not forget, suddenly appeared in front of him. Tang Qin also recognized Long Zai Tian. She stood up with her baby in her arms and looked up at the two figures in the sky. Her pretty face also showed surprise. Isn't that Long Zai Tian? Oh my God!" Tang Qin couldn't help but exclaim. She had seen Long Zai Tian from afar and knew very well that Long Zai Tian was a legendary hero of the Tang Empire. Later, she brought the entire ice sect and followed Long Yu to the divine battle world outside of Heavenly Mandate Island. She knew that Long Zai Tian was being hunted down and trapped in the heavenly prison Thunderpool. There was no news for so long. She never thought that there would be a day when Long Zai Tian would return. However, she couldn't see how much cultivation Long Zai Tian had now. After all, Long Zai Tian's aura was relatively reserved. Moreover, the gap between her and Long Zai Tian was too big. White Cloud and Tang Qin both stood up and looked in the direction where Long Yu and Long Zai Tian were flying from. Long Yu saw White Cloud and Tang Qin from afar and began to introduce them to Long Zai Tian. "This is White Cloud. When you were in the Tang Empire, you were the best of brothers. He was the clan leader of the Tang Empire's Gentian clan. Although White Cloud and Tang Qin didn't care much about improving their martial arts realm, they also had the cultivation of the King's Path secret realm. Among them, White Cloud was in the late stage of the King's realm, and Tang Qin was in the early stage of the King's realm. In the current Northern Snow Empire, this cultivation was nothing. However, they didn't pursue fame and wealth. This cultivation was absolutely enough to protect themselves. Even if there was any powerful existence that wanted to harm them, they had the communication talisman that Yu Hanxin had given them. They could inform the nearby Northern Snow Empire Army Corps at any time. Boy, you're doing something wrong. Long Zai-Tian looked at White Cloud and Tang Qin and immediately knocked the back of Long Yu's head. You know that he is your father's brother. Why didn't you help him? Why is he only in the King's Path secret realm? Since you haven't thought about it, don't try to take advantage of me. If you want to be my father, you should at least take care of my mother. Long Yu had a headache over Long Zai-Tian's personality, but he still explained, also, it's not that I don't want to help White Cloud and Senior Tang Qin. They stayed here willingly. The rest of the people I brought with me are currently training in the foreign tribe's battlefield. They're all trying to break through to the sovereign's secret realm. And so that's how it is. Long Zai-Tian narrowed his eyes and looked at White Cloud from afar. However, he couldn't remember anything. However, there were some things that couldn't be remembered just by looking at him once. Let's talk to him later. Let's see if I can remember anything. Long Zai-Tian laughed heartily and increased his speed. Soon, he landed in front of the houses on the mountain peak and walked towards White Cloud. When the two met, there was no need for Long Yu to introduce them. After all, they both knew who the other party was. However, Long Yu didn't expect that Long Zai-Tian would still be able to chat with White Cloud even after losing his memories. The two entered the house and prepared to talk. Long Yu could only stay outside with Tang Qin and White Cloud. How old is the baby? 6 months. Congratulations, congratulations. Long Yu chatted with Tang Qin, and they soon talked about the Gentian clan and the Ice Gate. It turned out that these two sects had taken root in the capital of the Northern Snow Empire. The sect leaders of these two sects were people that Long Yu didn't know. They were the rising stars of their sections. Chapter 14:14. At that time, Long Yu had also thought about bringing the Ice Sect, the Gentian clan, and Shu Chan's group of people to Beyond Heaven World. But when he had this idea, he was already in the outer galaxy of the Demon Clan's territory. Obviously, they could not adapt to life in the outer galaxy. At the very least, their martial arts realm was not high enough, so it was impossible for them to complete the training tasks in the outer galaxy. Therefore, they were not qualified to stay in the outer galaxy. Therefore, Long Yu could only let them continue to stay in his micro-world like this. According to the selection system of Long Yu's micro-world, once a cultivator with enough talent appeared, the 5 emperors would gather them so that Long Yu could take them out when it was convenient. For the time being, the Ice Sect and the Gentian clan did not have disciples who had reached this level. Therefore, they were still developing themselves in the imperial capital of the Northern Snow Empire. After waiting for a long time, Long Yu did not see White Cloud and Long Zai-Tian come out of the house. As the sun set, Tang Qin smiled at Long Yu and said, I will go into the house to make some food. I don't know how long they are going to talk. Let's not stand outside. Okay. Long Yu nodded. He followed Tang Qin into the house and found that the decorations were very simple and refreshing. This kind of life was somewhat enviable. Unfortunately, Long Yu was not destined to get used to this kind of peaceful life. After entering the house, he did not disturb Long Zai-Tian and White Cloud, nor did he follow Tang Qin all the way. Instead, he followed Tang Qin to an empty room. This room was usually used by the couple to cultivate. In this place, Long Yu quietly cultivated. He had experienced the previous battle and understood what he was currently lacking in. Therefore, he wanted to take advantage of this time to improve. The area he wanted to improve was, of course, the secret martial arts technique, the Devil Dust Heart. Previously, he had cultivated the Demon Dust Heart to the 2nd level, and the speed at which his body was reconstructed was not slow. However, in actual combat, he still could not keep up with the rhythm. Long Yu had fought against a 3rd-stage Sovereign Realm Fire God Race's elite patrol team, and he had almost been killed in a desperate melee. At that time, if Long Yu's Devil Dust Heart realm was higher, it would have been much easier to fight. In any case, he had already accumulated more than 4 months' worth of heaven and earth spiritual qi. This amount of heaven and earth spiritual qi was definitely enough for him to upgrade his Devil Dust Heart martial arts secret technique by at least 3 levels. As long as there was enough heaven and earth spiritual energy or creation power, it was undoubtedly very fast to upgrade the level of martial arts secret techniques. Long Yu's pocket dimension had already stored enough heaven and earth spiritual qi. Now that he was in the pocket dimension, he could casually use his world power to absorb the heaven and earth spiritual qi stored in other parts of the pocket dimension into his body. On the right side of Long Yu's chest, the Devil Dust Heart was beating slowly. The blood vessels on it were connected to every part of Long Yu's body. The moment any part of his body was injured, it would immediately recover. At this time, Long Yu was gathering the heaven and earth spiritual energy towards the Devil Dust Heart. According to the cultivation method of the Devil Dust Heart, he began to condense this 2nd heart. After Long Yu's pocket dimension merged with the heavenly spirit source, the recovery rate of heaven and earth spiritual energy became extremely fast. Not only could Long Yu provide 10 times the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy to the bone race and vestigial race, but he had also accumulated a large amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy. According to the calculation of the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy, the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy that Long Yu had accumulated was equivalent to at least 1,000 primordial grade divine pills. 1,000 primordial grade divine pills, how much resources was that? This was the biggest difference between a cultivator with a pocket dimension and other cultivators. Once one stepped into the ruler's secret realm and condensed a pocket dimension, the entire pocket dimension would be equivalent to an endless supply of heaven and earth spiritual energy to the cultivator, saving a lot of resources. A single pocket dimension could support the hundreds of billions of cultivators in the new martial world. From this, it could be seen that the difference between stepping into the ruler's secret realm and not entering the ruler's secret realm was too great. Now that Long Yu had so much heaven and earth spiritual energy, he was wondering if he should go take a look at the bone race and vestigial race. Perhaps Yu Wufang wanted to exchange more unbounded grade martial skill jade slips for heaven and earth spiritual energy. In any case, upgrading the Devil Dust Heart was the most important thing for Long Yu. He gathered all the spiritual qi of heaven and earth towards the Devil Dust Heart in an endless stream, continuously increasing the strength of the Devil Dust Heart. At this rate, it would not take more than a few hours to raise the level of this martial arts secret technique. A full day and night passed. The heaven and earth spiritual qi that Long Yu had accumulated for so many months was quickly condensed into the Devil Dust Heart. This secret martial art technique, the Devil Dust Heart, was directly upgraded to the 5th level. Upgrading the Devil Dust Heart is indeed much more difficult than upgrading the pure world physique and balanced control. Looks like I'll have to accumulate heaven and earth spiritual energy for another 2 months before I can upgrade the Devil Dust Heart to the 6th level. Long Yu sighed with emotion. The heaven and earth spiritual energy was still plentiful. As long as he upgraded the Devil Dust Heart to the 6th level, he wouldn't need any more heaven and earth spiritual energy. At that time, he could pour even more heaven and earth spiritual energy into the new martial world, increasing the cultivation speed of the billions of cultivators in the new martial world. After all, it was almost time to create more talents for the Void Galaxy. Without the heavenly spirit source to increase the rate of heaven and earth spiritual energy production in Long Yu's pocket dimension by 10 times, it would be too difficult to achieve this. But now, Long Yu had easily upgraded the Devil Dust Heart to the 5th level. It could be said that the recovery speed of the heaven and earth spiritual energy in Long Yu's pocket dimension was not inferior to that of some third-stage rulers. A day and night passed, and no one came to disturb him. When he used up all the heaven and earth spiritual energy in his body, he paid attention to his surroundings and discovered that White Cloud and Long Zai Tian were drinking and chatting in the courtyard outside the house. Tang Qin was pouring wine at the side. From the looks of it, they seemed to be chatting happily. I wonder if he has recovered some of his memories? Long Yu thought to himself, but he didn't disturb them. With a thought, he disappeared from the house. Since Long Zai Tian and White Cloud hadn't finished their discussion, he had to do something else first. For example, he had to go see Yu Wufang of the Bone Race. The Bone Race now had 10 times the heaven and earth spiritual energy supply every month, so their lives were naturally much more comfortable. Many of the younger generation of the Bone Race could gradually cultivate and improve their martial path realms. This gave the 300,000 living beings of the Bone Race the motivation to work hard. When Long Yu appeared in front of Yu Wufang again, Yu Wufang was obviously waiting for Long Yu. When he saw Long Yu, Yu Wufang immediately came up to him, but when he saw that Long Yu didn't have the Nether Void Dragon Dagger with him, he couldn't help but feel vexed. They couldn't communicate like this. However, Long Yu smiled and raised his hand to release the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. Now that he and the ancient Dragon Bone Tower had reached an unparalleled level, their minds were connected, and the ancient Dragon Bone Tower was the consciousness of the battle weapon, so it could completely receive Yu Wufang's divine sense. In other words, as long as they had an unparalleled battle weapon, humans or Yao cultivators could communicate with the other races. What do you want? Just say it. Long Yu said directly to Yu Wufang through the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. Yu Wufang's divine sense quickly passed into Long Yu's mind through the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. My lord, the Bone Race has been living much better than before. Thank you for your generosity. That's what you've earned. We're just trading on equal terms. Long Yu smiled and replied, as I said before, as long as you provide me with an unbounded martial skill jade slip, I can give you 10 times the heaven and earth spiritual energy for a month. My lord, since it's a trade, it should be fair. At the very least, it should be relatively fair. Yu Wufang thought for a moment, then sent a divine sense message to Long Yu. Heaven and earth spirit energy is a resource that can be constantly restored to you, my lord. But the unbounded martial skill is just one less to us. A monthly transaction is far too much of a loss for the Bone Race and the remnant races. Then what do you want? Long Yu squinted his eyes and asked back. An unbounded martial skill jade slip for 3 times the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy, and forever. Yu Wufang straightforwardly stated his demand. He wasn't afraid of Long Yu getting angry. In any case, they had the unbounded martial skill jade slips, which could guarantee their safety. What they needed to do now was negotiate with Long Yu. 3 times the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy? That's not a good deal for me. If that's the deal, I'd rather not have the unbounded martial skill. Long Yu chuckled. He did not agree to the other party's conditions. He did not even think about bargaining. Giving the Bone Race 10 times the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy meant that Long Yu would need to consume 10% of the heaven and earth spiritual energy. Right now, he needed to consume 20% of the heaven and earth spiritual energy in the new martial world, and he planned to increase the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy in the new martial world. Without a doubt, compared to the unbounded martial skill, the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy in the new martial world was much more important. After all, the two unbounded martial skills that Long Yu had obtained hadn't even reached the transformation realm yet. Then, how about 2.5 times? Yu Wufang thought for a moment, then proposed again. Our bone race has experts who have entered the sovereign secret realm before. We also know the natural recovery rate of heaven and earth spiritual energy. Therefore, if you give us 3 to 5 times the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy, it shouldn't affect the Lord too much. If Long Yu didn't have the heavenly spirit source, then the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy wouldn't be small. But now that he had the heavenly spirit source, 3 to 5 times the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy wouldn't affect him too much. However, Long Yu couldn't give the other party the impression that heaven and earth spiritual energy was cheap. 2 times. That's the most I can accept. Also, I'll only accept 3 transactions. 3 unbounded martial skill jade slips for 6 times the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy. If that's the case, I can still consider it. Long Yu directly stated his bottom line. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.